I believe that will turn either blue or green if we're live.
No, it stays red.
Oh,
So,
well then there's that.
so, I think we're live. Can you check and see if there's another stream on
Facebook?
You're live.
Okay,
We are?
we're live.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Alright,
Matcha.
so
You're wonderful.
is there any additional questions for the website committee report?
Vice chair, he's wonderful.
Hearing none? Hearing none, we're gonna go to the next agenda item, which is the chair's report. I did not send this out in advance, I must be honest. But it's done, and it will be sent out to everybody now, but, I'm just gonna very much synopsize this though. General overview of what I've done since the last meeting, and I did start, this was saying that my father's funeral was at the end of May. I did have some time that was not, although I was still working and doing things, I wasn't quite as productive as I would have hoped to be, but, I was still doing stuff, so anyway, since then, I've been working hard to get back on track. One of the things that I was involved in was along with Mr. Ham and Ms. Matson to compile the response to the appeal of the platform committee, and part of my report, by the way, is an attachment of, not platform, the judicial committee part of that is attached to my report, which is their final ruling. I also am giving links to all of the parts for that. Then there's Senate Bill, the next thing I did, Senate Bill 27, which is the Presidential Tax Transparency and Accountability Act. We have opposed that, and it has now been signed into law. I've been working with Richard Winger, who has attorneys on board to file a lawsuit against the state, and Kim Ruff has agreed to be a plaintiff in that case. I know that President Trump is also appealing that, but we will also be a party to an appeal. And then the other was, I already reported on June 27th, I got that call from Mark Seidenberg, who is sending me an email that he hasn't sent me yet, which I was going to do as part of this, report. But that's on Senate Bill, 696, which was the one to basically cease to recognize the American Independent Party. There will be a, hearing on that on Wednesday in Sacramento. So I'm hoping that somebody will be able to go to Sacramento and speak on behalf of the Libertarian Party in opposition to this. I personally will not be able to be in Sacramento on Wednesday, so we can talk about this offline, but if somebody could be in Sacramento on Wednesday to speak in opposition of Senate Bill 696, that is when it's scheduled for a hearing. So, next, I've written an op-ed basically about those two issues, and it's basically to let people know what Sacramento is doing to really ensure a one-party state. All of these things are trying to ensure a one-party state. It can happen to these other parties, it can happen to us. And they do it in the guise of being sure that people aren't confused, because voters are confused when they sign up as the independent party, which many are. That may be true. But nonetheless, they've got 500,000 registered voters. They've been a recognized political party since 1968. And this is just another way for Sacramento to ensure that we only have Democrats. So that op-ed is completed. It should be being published, I believe, hopefully next week, unless they have any edits. And that op-ed will be published by the Southern California News Group, which will be in all 11 papers in the South. So once that is done, I will send a link. I just spoke about a few things I did. I've done a few speaking engagements. One of the things is I was invited as a guest of Lupe Kindle to the California Club, where Barbara Cohen was a speaker. She was also a speaker at the Southern California Conference. She's the vice president for the Central Bank of Austria. She's also the president of the Hayek Institute. She is she does a traveling libertarian roadshow throughout Europe. She's a very interesting speaker. The other thing I wanted to mention is during this lunch I sat with Judge Gray, who is very soon going to be publishing a new book. Yes, I'm not going to talk about it. He's also doing a musical one at the Southern California Conference. He's saying to us, but anyways, that's and it was quite good actually. But But he's publishing a new book, which is a compilation of all of these things he does, which is 2 paragraphs on libertarianism. That's gonna be published soon, and all of the proceeds from that book will be given to the Libertarian Party of California. So,
Wow,
yes.
that's worth it.
Yeah, so by the way, I've got it, I'll give that really good reviews on Amazon, so it's like a really good seller.
Totally inspiring to see the more.
I'm sorry? I don't know what the final title is, but it's a compilation of his 2 paragraphs on libertarianism. Let's see, also after the recent tragedies, oh, and I was also contacted by a news talk radio station in Reading. Things are being finalized, but they want me to be a guest on one of their shows for a full hour talking about the Libertarian Party, and I'm going to be doing that. As soon as I get confirmation, I will send that out.
Please.
Yes.
Thank you.
After the recent tragedies in Texas, Ohio, and California, Communications and Marketing Committee, spearheaded by Elizabeth Stump, wanted to do a press release, which I think is a very good idea. So she's in the process of creating the press release that will be signed jointly by me and the chair of Texas, John Wolford. We've also reached out to Harold Thomas, the chair of Ohio. He has not gotten back to me, but we'll be putting that out on all of the wires, and it will be a joint statement from libertarian parties in the 2 states. Oh, this is interesting, but I just before all this happened had spoken to Chris Ruffer on the phone, and this coming weekend I'm meeting with him for lunch in Newport Beach. So he wants to know what's going on. CiviCRM was brought up, and I did want to mention briefly. Currently, we're doing a test on CiviCRM. We're working with National. We are not migrating to them. We are doing a test to see how it will run. Nick Smith is working on it, then it'll be tested by the Secretary and the Treasurer. At which point, and we'll get to questions in a minute, at which point it would be up to this committee if we were to actually go to CiviCRM. It is free to us. Right now we're paying approximately $190 a month for Neon. It doesn't meet all our needs, but most. There's also Nation Builder, which is $199 a month. In 2017, there was a test on that. It didn't seem appropriate for our party. So in the end, this will be up to this committee, so nothing is changing yet, but it is in process, and I did just kind of want to. I'm gonna finish this, then I'm gonna go to questions. This is the last thing. The Communications and Marketing Committee has now been fully populated. The Convention Committee has been populated with what was originally the 5 members. However, we have now changed to 7 members, so I've reached out to San Diego and Orange County to see if each of them would like to have a member since it's in the south. The Historical Preservation Committee is going strong, but they did have a resignation, so I want to just let everybody know. Please, if you know anybody that wants to be on some of these committees I'm about to mention, have them contact have them fill out the application process, because we've got that. I will tell you that the membership committee has a vacancy because, so that's a newly reformed committee, and George Reese from Orange County was elected as the chair. However, Mark Hinkle has just texted me that he is now resigning from that committee, so there is an opening on that committee as well. There's an opening on the style committee, and the style committee has been fully populated now with 3 members.
What was the third one?
The third, so it's Machus Homer, who's right there.
Aww.
And Mr. Branham.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Machas.
Yeah, so now, and Joe Dean is the chair of that committee, so that has now been fully populated. And the volunteer committee, Devin Harris resigned, which is why we filled that other seat. She's moving out of state, and so she will not be an active member, so I have an opening on that committee as well. That is pretty much everything I had. So is there any questions for my report, Mr. Nelson? You had your hand up?
Yeah, you mentioned that CiviCRM was currently in the mix of being tested. Is there a specific testing period by which we're to conclude that and get, or like for the people that have tested it to give their results?
No, because right now we're working with National. Right now Andy Burns is on his honeymoon, so he's not currently working on it right this moment. we are still getting the site up and running for the CRM portion. We won't be migrating our website or anything like that until the final thing is done.
Well, I was just curious if any of
So
the
no,
members.
we don't, I mean,
Okay.
I've been told now that we will be fully migrated into the testing by the end of September.
Okay.
So-
I know that, members of the state parties in Ohio and Florida have expressed concerns with National's Civi CRM, so I wanted to.
Well, and that's one of the reasons.
I'd welcome feedback from the people that are testing it from the
Right.
LPC.
And that's one of the reasons why it's been so slow in getting us the site up for our testing, is cause there were some issues with servers and bandwidths and this and that and the other thing. So before adding any new states, they wanted to get all of that corrected. So that's why we're where we are now. I thought that we would be done with migration by the end of June, and then I thought it was gonna be by the end of July. Now we're gonna get the end of September, so it'll probably be at our next XCOM meeting where we would have this final report on it. If it were before that, you know, we could have an email motion, but it
Thank
will
you,
be
Madam
tested.
Chair.
Okay, any other questions for me? Dr. Olson?
You were speaking of the various committees and openings that are on those committees. Would it be
Oh.
out of order to fill for this body to fill the awards committee and the credentials committee during new business?
It would not be out of order. And there is one other thing I was gonna mention that I didn't, is one of the things that I've spoken to the vice chair about, and we've been talking about, is doing an ad hoc committee, and I'm out of time. Legislative committee, if you wanna talk about it afterwards, talk about it. We are out of time for questions unless there's a motion to extend time.
I'll make a motion to extend time by 2 minutes so that we can talk about the.
Okay, there's been a motion to extend time by 2 minutes, is there a second?
Object.
There's no second. You can let it die for lack of second, or you can
You're right.
object. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there objections?
Object.
It's been objected to. So, all those in favor of extending time by 2 minutes, well, it's actually debatable. Is there any debate? Hearing none. All those in favor of extending time by 2 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
Motion, the time is extended by 2 minutes.
Kinda thought that.
Okay, so this is something that has been especially talked about by Dr. Olson, so I'm gonna let him actually use his minute and 50 left to say this.
So, recently, we've been contacted by numerous members of the party about various assembly or senate bills which they have concerns about and they would like the party to take action on, and make statements on. And I think it would behoove us as a party to have an ad hoc and maybe later on even put it in the operating procedure manual to have a committee, a legislative affairs committee that actually is a body of people who watch the Assembly and Senate, the bills that they're considering, so that we can make statements on those in a timely fashion and not just leave it to the members. Not that, you know, we would still take input from members, but I think it would behoove us to have a committee that actually watches those bills and could potentially even be a committee that interacts with those bodies on our behalf.
Okay, so I am gonna be doing this ad hoc committee. It's not finalized, it's ad hoc, so it'll be, you know, the chair is appointing. Anybody interested in that, please let me know, and we will populate that committee. And I think the other thing that committee can also do is look at the propositions that are gonna be on the ballot and also make suggestions and recommendations and write ballot arguments against or for, depending on the case. So I think that's something that body could put together, and then it would be up to the executive committee to finalize those views, but it would be a group that's putting it together. I believe that, is there any other questions? Hearing none. That brings us to the vice chair's I'm just in the nick of time. The vice chair's report. And by the way, Ms. Olson is our timekeeper.
Oh, yes. Vice Chair's report, I submitted the report in a timely fashion, so everybody's had an opportunity to read it. I don't wanna waste a lot of time, so I will accept questions if anybody has any. Otherwise, you can read the report if you haven't already.
We'll call vote.
That's an LLC that we're talking about.
Okay. Are there any questions for the vice chair? Hearing none, we can reset that timer. And we will go to the next item of the agenda, which is the secretary's report. Mr. Blandaya?
Okay, I submitted a report. Let's see, is there anything that anybody really needs to know here? There was a motion to expend some money to, in support of, Yalcon, which was approved. There was a motion to, approve a, resolution to be posted on our website, which basically says that, we disagree with the judicial committee's ruling, which was signed by the Libertarian Party of Fresno County, Kings County, and Solano County, and has been posted to the website. Nothing else of real significance here. Membership at the end of the second quarter was 1,058 with 961 Central Committee members, compared to 1,077 and 961 Central Committee members from the previous quarter. Membership database has been updated as best as possible. Operating procedures manual has been updated. Bylaws and county bylaws are posted as best we can. There's missing bylaws from El Dorado, Kern, Kings, Monterey, Placer, Plumas, Orange, San Bernardino, San Diego, Stanislaus, and Yolo counties. And with that, I will yield back the balance of my time unless there's any questions.
My only question is, was the membership at the end of July higher than the membership that was reported in the report?
Maybe I missed the question. Was it higher at the end of July than
As listed in his report for the end of June.
the end of June?
He had,
1 month difference.
he had given those numbers for the end of the quarter. I'm just asking because it's part of his report, so I wanted it in the report.
Why, yes, they are higher.
Whoa.
Significantly higher. We had, what is it, it was 961 and now it's 1069.
It was
Pardon me.
1,000 something.
1,058 and now it's 1069.
Yeah, with additional central committee members.
So 11, yeah.
11 additional.
Yeah, so we did get new members, I just want. Any other questions for the secretary? Hearing none.
Question from public.
Wait, who has a question? And I'm sorry, you,
Jamie.
yeah, I knew you were Jamie, but you have, is there any objection to hearing from a question from Jamie Delzano? No, go ahead.
Is there data where the new members derive, looking from the county or stuff like that?
I could pull that from the database.
Well, I can.
Probably Los Angeles.
No, well, I can tell you that if you look at this report, which will be part of the record, and it's part of what's online already.
You're doing okay for
It gives it
Riverside,
by
the
county.
highest.
So you can see where the counties, so I can tell you just by looking at this, there was additional members in Los Angeles, there was additional members in,
The numbers went down strangely enough.
San Diego, there were several, but this report actually gives it county by county, and it gives the months.
Thank you.
And as a matter of fact, this report gives the last 3 months since our last executive committee member.
And that's in the secretary's report that came out in email and or.
Correct, and we'll also be
Correct.
part of the minutes that are posted on the website once they're approved. Any other questions for the secretary's report? Hearing none, that leads us to the treasurer's report, which I believe was also sent out at this time.
Yeah, anyway, I don't know if everybody's read it or not. First item I put on there was our FETC reporting. That little organization put out a new schedule, that said, our report was due on the 18th, and they published the schedule on July 23rd. So when the schedule went out, you were already late So anyway, I filed a report as an amendment to the semi-annual, and because it was late, it'll be interesting to see if they wanna fine us.
That would be interesting.
They're criminals.
That's why we're all here.
Fundraiser for the state, that's it. Anyway, another thing pertaining to the government, the IRS sent us a couple of love notes.
Look at you, running into your little snark.
Back in March that,
Oh, Lord.
we owed $8,814.81 for failing to file back taxes on,
That's true.
employees. And when I called the IRS, they said, yeah, they have no record that we've ever had employees. And they wanted us to file a schedule, I think it's a 941, to say that we have never had any employees. And I didn't wanna file a schedule 941 saying we had no employees, because then we're starting to report as though we are an employer with employees. So anyway, I sent a little love note off to the IRS, trying to find out what this whole thing pertains to. So I wanted a copy of all documentation, that they have pertaining to, Schedule 941 for our employer ID, which we have to have. So, they have received the letter, I got confirmation on that, no response yet. Anyway, our due sharing, checks that went out in July, and there was another supplemental, check that just, actually two of them went out recently. Anyway, our
To where?
Santa Cruz.
And also Riverside.
Riverside.
Okay, let's, no crosstalk, let's.
Riverside got the big one for $500, thank you, Gomer.
What? You did that?
You did some good, dude.
You just did something good, man.
Hey!
Yeah!
Yeah, there you go. Now you got it.
Changing your party affiliation to Riverside.
Oh, yeah.
Riverside.
Wow.
And then becoming a life member, so Riverside County got $500.
Nice.
Yes.
Whoa.
Anyway,
Well,
so
he is one of our other new life members.
yeah, we're taking quite a
Oh,
few
yeah.
of those there. Anyway, our total payout for the month of July was $7,337.50, which I think is an all-time record by quite a margin. I did a due sharing run just to find out how we're doing so far, for the month of July anyway, and so far we've incurred another $1,412.50 in additional due sharing, which would go out, in January. So we're doing pretty good on the due sharing. Anyway, I included a profit and loss statement anyway for the first 6 months of the year. I take that back, through July, so the first 7 months of the year. And so far we have a net income of $23,929.36. So we're running well ahead of predictions. Got a balance sheet, anyway, I went in this morning and I updated checked the bank totals. In all of our bank accounts right now, we have $60,322.32. And that doesn't.
Subtract that.
That's subtracting out the $500 check
Once
that we just
I
had.
finish that question.
Budget. We have an issue coming up with,
That's on the agenda under state fair.
no, this is our meeting.
Oh, that's gonna come up under new meeting. But go ahead.
So, you know, we talked about our,
You could say.
well, anyway, we're kind of over budget on paying for meetings. We're not over budget yet, but, because we haven't paid for the next meeting, but the bottom line is, we need to allocate some more funds for that. Because we will go over budget.
And that'll come up when we set the next meeting,
Right.
just as a note.
And I have a supplemental request that just came in this morning, for more state fair funds, which puts it way over budget.
And that is on the agenda under state fair, and I saw it, yes. Yeah, that's already on the agenda under state fair, so we will deal with that then.
And I brought along a, printout of the due sharing, so if you wanna know what county got how much, I have that, and that'll be put up on the website, cause all the names are
Yeah.
missing.
And it's also in the report, but I sent it.
Anyway, that's about it. Any questions?
Josh, did you have a question?
Yeah, the figures, oh, sorry. The,
Oh my God, I can't believe you can
bank
do that.
figure that you gave us, I just wanna make sure that doesn't include, what, we've already paid for the convention that happened.
Oh, yeah, the convention was, that was paid for and we made a profit on the convention. There was no outstanding debt
Just,
for the
just
convention.
wanted to make sure.
We have no,
Yeah.
we,
I don't know if you know
actually.
that, but the LLC.
So actually, I have a question.
Yes.
Do we have any outstanding debt?
Yeah.
No.
No, we have none. Well, that's not a debt because we
That's-
don't.
We don't actually owe that, that's not
The
constitutional.
IRS thing is in dispute, and I've already talked to them, and they said it's essentially a fake number. So, they told me it was on a recorded line, and I have the IRS agent's numbers where, the lady that I was talking to on a recorded line said this whole thing was entered by an IRS agent. She said they have no record of us ever having an employee. And these were made-up numbers that an IRS agent entered under our EIN number. So everything is totally fake. They don't have any evidence at all to support their tax liability. So that's why I sent them a letter, and I want to know what documentation they have, because it's,
Did she say how they're gonna resolve it?
no,
No, that's
I'm,
what the letter is.
They
about.
investigated themselves and found no
Because
wrongdoing.
they're filling it
They
Yeah.
wanted it to be
Typical
resolved
government.
by us filing a 941 for the 2 periods saying we had no employees.
No.
And I have no intention of doing that because I think it puts us on a slippery slope. It's like, well, why didn't you file for all the additional periods since you are now, filing as an employer?
And then can we charge them if we have to get a lawyer to fight them?
Can, no crosstalk, please?
Right.
I'm sorry. First, I put myself into this,
Okay.
so I'm gonna go first than you. On this, right now, we're at the point where they've told us that we have this liability, although they've explained that we really don't. The ball's in their court. Once they respond to us, then we can decide what further actions we may or may not have to take, which could include a lawyer or other things, and at that point, then we would talk about asking them for reimbursement for that. But I think that at this point, it's very, it's premature because we don't know what they have not responded to us. We haven't gotten another billing, they haven't given us a demand for payment. We have never had an employee. And just as a point of information, what tax year was this?
2008, which is why the original amount that they had billed was $2,005.50 on both of those periods. And so now this notice has come out,
And is there
well, yeah, because it's interest and penalties. So I don't know when this was even filed. So if somebody filed this maybe last year and they backdated it, I don't know. So that's why the request for information to find out, what agent filed this, maybe why they filed this, and when was it filed? So I just have lots of questions that I have no documentation on, so I'm on a fishing expedition to find out what the hell's going on.
And I'm gonna leave it, and also, just as a point, they have no record of sending us any other notifications from that time. They said they sent us one, and then the next one they sent us was in 2019. From 2008 to 2019.
They had a claim that they sent us something and I think it was 2011 that we didn't respond to. But I looked through all the back records that I have, and I can't find any evidence at all where we had ever received any notifications from the IRS. And I've got electronic versions of previous filings from other agencies, and they made copies of those. So I think it's just one big made-up story, and I don't know why.
So what you're saying is they're the ones on the fishing expedition?
Yeah.
Well,
Mr. Glenn,
they're
They'll never.
essentially filing a fraudulent tax return for us, as far as I can tell.
Mr. Blandon.
So at our last meeting, you said that you were gonna try and get in touch with, some tax experts, what's?
Time has been, we would need a motion to extend time to continue this.
Motion to extend for
Mr. Malone can finish his question.
Okay, finish your question, but I don't know if we're gonna get an answer.
What's the story on that?
I asked them people, and they said, yeah, just go ahead and file the 941. I said, no.
Okay.
That's right, okay, so time is expired, is there any, if there's any other questions, we need a motion to extend time? Okay, so the next item of business on the agenda is the operating procedures manual. Per the operations procedures, per that manual, this always has to be an agenda item. The secretary has already said that what is up on the website is the most current as of our last changes at the May 18th meeting. Is there anything for the operating procedures manual?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to amend the operation procedural, or the operating procedures manual, I apologize, to make the convention oversight committee, moving forward a standing committee. I
It
have,
already is.
not an ad hoc, I was under the
No, it's-
impression.
No, it's a standing
No,
committee.
I'd like to move that under the purview of the executive committee rather than just the chair. I have text for the motion that I can read off if that's appropriate.
You can amend it, yeah, you can amend that.
So the amendment as proposed reads, that the purpose of the Convention Oversight Committee, the Executive Committee shall appoint a Convention Oversight Committee during the first 3 months after a convention. The Convention Oversight Committee serves at the pleasure of the Executive Committee. 7 members will be appointed to the Convention Oversight Committee by the Executive Committee, and that committee shall select the committee chair. The committee shall then have the duty of planning the party's annual conventions. A written report shall be prepared by the Convention Oversight Committee following the annual convention that committee has planned, and it shall be delivered at the next regular executive committee following the convention, rather than the, I won't say impromptu, but rather than at the meeting that we had immediately following the convention. The Convention Oversight Committee responsibilities include: 1, the committee shall plan the convention at the venue decided upon by the Executive Committee. 2, the committee shall have the duty to plan the convention schedule. 3, the committee shall have the duty of contacting prospective speakers and vendors for the convention, as well as to decide upon the costs of vendor tables. 4, the committee shall may solicit additional people as volunteers to help with the planning and execution of the convention. And that is the total of the text that I have proposed as an amendment. I can send that to the secretary. That's a good idea.
Yeah, is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, is there discussion on this? I'm gonna bring up one point. So historically, the chair of that committee is the person or persons that bring forth their proposal for convention that the executive committee decides on, because they're typically the ones who've already had a relationship with the hotel and so forth. I'm just throwing that out there because that has been historically who's the chair, because they're the point person. It's not a question, it's an argument, I'm just saying.
I would propose then that I know that that is the case, that the current person who is the interim chair of the committee is the person that proposed the venue and brought forth the bid. However, I know that the expected chair would be the vice chair of the executive committee. So I don't view that as being, I know that it is historical precedent, I just don't view it as being a matter to overrule what
Okay,
we
then
should do going forward.
I do have one other question, when would this go into effect, because
It
we already
would-
have a seated committee.
We do have an seated committee, and I thank you for that. This would follow immediately the 2020 convention, so this would be moving forward from that.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Are there any further questions? I did
Well,
share
no,
this document.
this is
with the-
discussion, but I was asking a specific question, so is there any further discussion on the motion to amend the operating procedures manual to change this to what he just read, because I don't have a copy?
I'll share it to you as well.
I'd like to ask, what problem is this attempting to solve?
I believe that, especially given the fact that we have moved the convention back, which was originally justified under the fact that we would still be able to endorse candidates at convention, which is no longer applicable because, to my knowledge, all endorsements from the party are due by December 11th and are thus, they would have to be done at the quarter 4 meeting of the executive committee rather than at convention. I believe that we need to account for that in future and I believe that we need to account for it in the future and also begin the planning of the next convention in the shorter time frame from April rather to the current schedule, which is now February, in a much shorter time frame than is currently the case. Cause we're now in August, which is about 4 months, 4.5 from the last convention. It would mandate a shorter time period, and it would give the executive committee, rather than just the chair, the purview to.
And you're
So
speaking in
almost-
favor of the motion.
I am speaking in favor.
Okay, I'm not speaking either in favor or opposed, but
Please.
I did wanna say that, just as a point of information, the executive committee, when they moved the convention to February, was well aware of the fact that that would not be able to have endorsements. The purpose of that was to have exposure, one moment. Because when we talked about that in the last executive committee that did this, the discussion was that we needed to have this before the primaries. It had nothing to do with endorsements, it had to do with
Okay.
exposure for the party.
Well, and in response to that, I would just say that I don't know that all of the delegates were aware of that.
Okay, and that's fine, but, and
I
again.
know, I appreciate what
I'm
you're
just-
saying,
as
I'm
a-
just
as a
saying that
point of
based upon
information.
my
Yeah.
conversations with delegates, not all of them were aware that we would not be able to fully endorse candidates at convention versus having to do it on the XCOM, which is why a lot of them supported the initial move from April to February, which is now a shorter time. Which
as a
granted,
point of
I know
information-
that was a decision by the executive
Right,
committee,
this
not
was
the
not,
delegation.
this was not the delegates at convention,
I
this-
think
this
that
was-
some may have raised.
and I'm not arguing with you, I'm giving a point of information, that the executive committee at that time was well aware of that. This was never an intention to be able to do endorsements, because the only way
Not a
to do
problem.
endorsements for the primary would be to have our convention the year prior.
Well,
So-
and I believe
and
that,
again,
as, if I may speak as the
Okay, then,
bylaws.
let me finish and then I'm gonna come
committee
back to
chair.
you, cause, so, that's why, and now you want to speak in favor of this motion.
Well, I do believe that we should adopt this particular motion, but as the bylaws committee chair, I am anticipating a proposed amendment that would, move to have 2 conventions. One would be to conduct internal party business, one, much like the GOP and the Democrats do within California at least. The other would be to endorse candidates specifically.
Okay.
And that's, again, that's just what I'm anticipating being brought forth. I can't speak further than that, but I do know that this is an issue for some. And that is one of the reasons why I brought forth this particular amendment to the OPM, which I
Alright.
don't know how much time we have left, but.
Probably not much.
1:30.
Oh, more than I thought. Any
More than
further
I thought as well.
discussion on this? This was only a 5-minute agenda item, right?
Yeah,
Okay, I
Okay.
thought that 5 minutes were up. Any further, discussion on this? Hearing none, we're gonna go to a vote. This would be to change a standing committee in the operating procedures manual. I do believe this only requires a simple majority vote.
And this would take effect following the 2020 convention. This does not affect the current convention committee, which the chair has appointed. I just wanna clarify that.
Okay, was that part of your initial motion?
Yes, it is moving forward. It does not affect what you have done as chair.
Okay.
And I have shared the amendment
Okay, so-
with both of you.
So nobody objected to, going to a vote, so what you'll be voting on is that this will be included in the this will amend what's currently in the operating procedures manual under the convention committee. And this particular provision being that committee is already seated for the current year would not take effect until after the next convention. So we're gonna go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
It passes.
So can the executive committee take the convention committee for 2020 now?
It's already,
Yeah, it's
Pretty
already
much
assembled, thankfully.
2021, sorry.
We don't have a place for it yet.
And based upon this bylaw regulation, it would be required that it be established at the latest within 3 months of the 2020 convention, so that we have more time moving forward to actually execute the plan.
Okay.
At the latest, yes. So
Okay.
it
Okay.
could potentially be.
We've expired on time, and that's crosstalk. It passed, so that will be changed, and we have expired on time, which, unless there's a motion to extend time, which somebody could do on operating procedures manual, that vote has already been done now. Okay, hearing none.
and I am sharing this with the rest of the executive committee, just so that they have the text.
Yeah, and as long as Mr. Blenheim has it.
He has the text.
And the next item on the agenda is the Northern Area Coordinators Report. Mr. Nelson?
Yes, ma'am. Alright,
Just use
so
our time.
I'm going to skip over the purpose via bylaws and the mission statement. The beginning of my term as Northern Area Coordinator, we started with 13 of the 32 counties having fully organized affiliates, which is nice considering the state of the Northern Area the Northern Area. I believe that we have a lot of potential. These counties are Alameda, Contra Costa, El Dorado, Placer, Plumas, Sacramento, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Santa Cruz, Solano, Sonoma, and Yolo. Myself being a founding member of the Solano affiliate, which is very happy to be part of. In addition, my predecessor had appointed all 5 of the current chair pro tems, that would be the vice chair Brent Olson, that have not yet met the qualifications for affiliation. The only change there is I have moved the chair pro tem from Greg Bitsy to Scott Kent Fowler, who is an elected libertarian within Butte County. He expressed a desire to organize the county with the inability to reach the current chair pro tem, thus I felt it necessary to switch out. Of the 32 counties that are within the north, 14 have no appointed chair pro tem. I am currently accepting anyone who would love to organize any of those counties. They are, let me see, Colusa, Glen, Lake Placid, Modoc, Napa, Nevada, Shasta, Sierra, Siskiyou, Sutter, Tehama, Trinity, and Yuba. I'm actively searching for pro tem, so if anyone watching the live stream or anyone that any of the other executive committee knows in those counties would like to operate an organizational procedure, I'd love to be in contact with them, because I want to get these counties, as many of them as possible, online before my term is up in 2021. I have been in contact with people in Yolo, Placer, Lake, and Sutter counties, so I'm hoping that over the next few months I can identify people in those counties to take the lead position. I'd really like to see them come online, and especially for YOLO if you're activated. I've been talking extensively about YOLO with the chair and the vice chair. Additionally, I wanted to say that over the past month I've tabled the Alcon with the Libertarian Party of Santa Clara County, the State Fair booth with James Just of Sacramento County, and the Art and Soul Festival in downtown Oakland with the Alameda County LP. To provide a brief synopsis of the events, YALCON was awesome. The button, stickers, and then literature were very popular in that order, but buttons were extremely popular for the event attendees, mainly focusing on the Second Amendment, but there was a wide reception to a variety of the topics discussed, even as far as drug decriminalization and sex workers' rights, which was awesome. I was able to plug a lot of people in with both their county and respective state parties, because this was the only one actually. The YALCON does a lot of their conventions. This was the only one actually on the West Coast, so we had a lot of people visiting from out of state. I was able to put them in touch with their county and state affiliates. I know I gave one lead directly to Rick Dawson in San Fernando Valley, so hopefully that comes together. The state fair was a good experience. I do recommend that we look at investing more in that if we move forward, like continuing a presence at the state fair, because our booth looked quite outdated compared to some of the other booths, and we had a lot of good material. I just feel that we could better present ourselves. It was a really good event though. While I was there, I only was able to be there for one shift. We had multiple people come by and switch their registration in addition to picking up buttons, but it was awesome to see that much voter interest, where people are actually willing to come by. Like they would just scan our booth and then realize who we are and then come up to switch their voter registration. Like it didn't even necessarily require much outreach. It was just like them voluntarily, like, oh cool, I am libertarian. I want to be a member of the party. I want to re-register. So we got them re-registered. We gave them information if they wanted to become a party member, which was really cool. Art and Soul in downtown Oakland was awesome. It was nice to be there with them. One thing that I thought was really cool was the Libertarian Party of Alameda County was raffling 2 t-shirts. So that was a really good way of connecting or gathering voter information, like mainly just their name and their email or phone number. That way they could be notified, but it also opened the avenue for further contact, and especially for their newsletter to go out. So I would recommend that other counties and even the state party, if we're gonna be tabling events, look at maybe allocating like 1 or 2 t-shirts, whether it's previous convention items or just other items that we may have to try and boost engagement, because I noted that in particular, in addition to the World's Smallest Political was highly effective in downtown Oakland.
I can give an update. I did a count, and though there may be duplicates, we had 24 entries total,
Okay,
email
beautiful.
entries.
Yeah, so, broadcast that, and, cause people want free stuff, it's awesome if we can get that out there, and information about it, and it's a good way to get voter information. You know, get them more interested, cause if they identify with us, plus it's free marketing, I think it's worth the investment, even if it's only 1 or 2 options. Finally, the thing that I'll bring up is the Northern Leadership Summit, which is gonna be held on the 14th of September in Roseville. I'm gonna work with the chair of the social media committee to hopefully get something put out on that over the next week with pricing involved, but should be awesome. We're gonna do a PR event and a lot of training focused on, because most of the counties in the northern area are smaller or emerging. So I'm hoping to draw in more of the pro tems in the smaller counties, and then hopefully next year we can move on to more like intermediate or advanced tactics, because I know that Wendy's region has a lot of very well established affiliates, and then Central has some more intermediate affiliates. I'd like the North to be able to move up, so the events that are covered at the Northern Area Summit should be recorded. I've included the address and some more information regarding that event at the in my report that can be viewed online. The other thing that I will do is I'd like to make a motion to repeal or to withdraw recognition of the Yolo County affiliate based upon my conversations with the chair and the vice chair of the state party. I believe that would be in order. To my knowledge, they haven't held an annual summit in quite some time, which is in violation of our bylaws. Also, I have talked with the county chair, who's been essentially a holdover, I believe, since Brent had the position. It doesn't sound like they've done much to organize, and I'd like to, for moving forward, I've reached out to a couple of people to see if they'd be interested in a pro tem position, but I'd like to try and get that county back on track, and I believe that would
So you're moving to pull their
recognition from the state party. So
Which county is that?
Yolo County. I believe that would offer us more freedom moving forward to actually establish a consistent county affiliate in the county. And I live in Dixon, which is 10 minutes away from Davis or Woodland, so I'm more than willing to walk or to drive out there and help out.
Or walk.
No. I'll walk if I need to, damn it. But I do want to help them. I do want to help them get back on track, and they are a neighboring county to Solano, which again I'm heavily involved with as their vice chair. I'd like the ability to get them back on track as quickly as possible, and I believe this is the best solution to do that.
So is there a second to that motion?
Thank you, Mr. Ham.
Alright. Is there any further discussion, any debate?
I have a question, does Yolo have a current treasurer?
To my knowledge, their treasurer is not current on their dues. It is the wife of the chair who recently renewed, but the treasurer has not, which also puts us in a bit of a predicament, which is another reason why I believe that our best solution is to currently pull the affiliate and then hopefully reorganize.
Okay, because they were sent a check, so I'm assuming it's not going to be like that account.
I don't believe that it is. I will try and communicate with them moving forward, but it sounds essentially like the affiliate's been dead for a few years, and I'd like to try to work to reestablish that one. Any further questions?
Are we on discussion?
We need to vote. There's a motion on that.
Right, I know what the motion is.
If there are any further questions.
Well, no, this would be discussion on a motion.
Call the question.
Question's been called, is there objection to calling the question? Hearing none. All those in favor, raise your hands. That's 12 in favor, all those opposed? Any expressed abstentions? Okay, it passes? No, there was no no's.
No expressed abstention, no.
Yeah, so it's just
12-0.
12-0, and it's not 12-0-0, it's just 12-0.
Yep.
Okay,
And
so
that
the
would
motion
conclude
passes.
my Northern Area Coordinator report. Thank you.
Is there any questions for the Northern Area Coordinator report?
Just a request, please pass on the information of, your new guy for, Butte County, replacing Bitsy.
Yeah, I've actually handled that with Mimi. I believe I believe that there was extra care given since the new chair pro tem is an elected libertarian, and she handled that personally.
Okay.
But his name is Scott Kentfowler.
Okay, we'll need to put his name on the volunteer.
So,
Correct.
yeah.
And time is expired on
I
this,
I would be
so,
more than happy to confer with you about that.
yeah, unless there's a motion to extend time. Seeing none, we will go to the next, well, actually, just there wasn't one. So the next item on the agenda is the Central Area Coordinator. There was no report given in advance. So I would leave this open to any questions for the Central Area Coordinator, because there is no report. He didn't do a report, so if a question is a
I
question.
saw Mr. Prosser over there raise his hand also.
How's it going up there, Dustin? Or Central?
I'm gonna come over here so I'm not speaking from off camera.
And also,
In case the
look at
poor
you.
viewers have got want to see
that's the
mine.
question that
I'll be honest, man, I got the area that's kind of the weakest. We've got mostly counties that have little to no organization.
Hey, don't compete with me.
I'm not competing with you, I'm just stating the facts. Kern County is probably our strongest, I would think, in our area. Kings County, sorry, excuse me. You guys are
That's what he
close to
said.
Kern. Man, I'm Central Valley, I'm way north of you guys. I should be northern.
Ventura County's.
But anywho, so Kings County, I know we got Callis, she's running for city council, I'm really hopeful for that, I'm gonna make some donations. I encourage anybody else to make some donations to that, because that seems like a very feasible, plausible type of run, the kind of things we should be focusing on. I really don't have a whole lot to report, because most of the news I've heard from my area is counties that are struggling or falling apart, and I mean, basically we need people. We need some volunteers, we need some membership, we need some active
So if
people.
anyone living within the
Any
Central
of you
area.
people that are in bigger counties, even if you're not in our area, if you want to come set up some stuff in cooperation with our local people, you know, there's no reason the state party can't set up events in unorganized counties to try to get something going there, you know, no matter what central area, central, southern, northern, who cares what area.
Road trip.
If there's nothing happening there, we could have events there, and I know places where we could do them. There is one thing I wanted to tell you guys all about. It's not really pertinent to our party, but it has been making state and national news, and it's right from our area. And Eduardo has even more insight if you guys would care to hear about it from him later. I don't know if that's something you guys want to do, but there's this group, the National, what are they called? The National Coalition of Straight Pride. I don't know what the hell they're stupid shit, right? So they're trying to organize this event in Modesto, and they put out this really weird post on their site that basically declared supremacy about every aspect of their life. One of which did include whiteness or Caucasian. Everything else was like, you know, Christian and Western civilization and masculinity and femininity. And I'll admit there were certain things that they said in their statement that I'm like, I don't find that offensive, or I don't find it too extreme. But the fact that they declaring their way of life supremacy, it's kind of hard to argue against it. So then there was this city council meeting a couple days ago where this guy gets up in front of everybody, in front of the city council of Modesto, and the rest of the people that are there to protest. And it must have been a faux pas or slip up, but either way the dude's a total jackass just for saying it. And he gets up there and says, we haven't done anything. We are totally a peaceful racist group. Right on, brother. Okay, whatever. You know, you got your First Amendment rights. I'm actually one of the people in town that says let them have their stupid organization. Let them have their little rally, their demonstration. I'm all in favor of letting people put their ignorance on display. Because if the rest of you are like me and say, I don't want to associate this with this person, that's your chance to know who they are, to disassociate with them. And it also shows, look, you know, as a private business owner, I know a ton of private business owners that were in protest of these people. And it's a perfect demonstration to illustrate, look, You guys didn't let them have their little demonstration. Now you don't know who they are. Suppose one of them comes into your business.
Right.
Now you gotta serve them not even knowing who they are. And if you do know who they are and don't wanna serve them, that's all the more reason to say, look, we need to let small business have their own discretion over who they serve or don't serve. If we make laws saying you can't discriminate or you have to take money from any person that comes in, next thing you know, one of these left-wing business owners is gonna be faced with some dude that comes in there in full-on Third Reich regalia with the swastika armband, and they're gonna be forced to serve.
Yep.
And what are you gonna say? I don't want your money. Well, too bad, you already passed a law that says if I'm a willing paying customer, you have to serve me.
Wait,
You know,
so just like that Wolfenstein scene?
It all ties into the same subject, but this is what's going on in Destin. There's been some craziness over this. It's garnered national attention. I'm in the position where I think both sides are getting a little ridiculous. That's all I really wanted to tell you.
Unless there's a motion to extend time, I will say that Mr. Foster. You guys.
You just have to hear me rant.
By the way, thank you very much for that. If there's a motion to extend time, I do know that Mr. Foster had something to say in regards to this, Mr. Dr. Olson.
I'd like to move to extend time by 2 minutes.
Seconded.
Object.
It's been moved and seconded with an objection to extend time by 2 minutes. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of extending time, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
It passes. Is there any objection to hearing from Mr. Prosser for this additional 2 minutes? Hearing none, Mr. Prosser?
All right, Mr. Quigley, feel free to answer my question later if you don't have an answer right off the bat, but I'm
Ask
wondering
away.
if you have if you've thought through or written down any priorities so far for how you want to allocate your funds and resources for the Central California region. Good, it's a good thing.
We're libertarians, man. We're fiscally conservative. I don't plan on spending any money until I know what we can actually do with it.
That's good.
And I welcome the input of any of you people. Anybody that thinks, I do know.
What do you mean, you?
I will say, any of you people, no matter what color or sex or gender identity you affiliate with, I don't care. If you got a good idea, share it with me. I'm open to good ideas. I'm social enough in my own area that I know like all the festivals and all the fairs and all the places where we could have a profitable booth. I'm gonna just be flat out with you. Even my own county lip stink, as I like to call it, which is Stanislaus County. We're in trouble. Our executive committee's been pulled apart through different job opportunities and schooling and everything. We're hardly even able to conduct meetings right now. It's difficult. Like even my own county, where I know a ton of people that listen to me, people that agree with me, we're having trouble just getting people that are willing to come, that just have the motivation to come out and partake and be part of meetings. Yeah. So I'm hesitant to set up a booth at somewhere where I don't even know if I have the manpower to man it and keep it. This is why I brought up the point earlier. If we could get state, you get these people from bigger counties that want to come in and bring, and we got all this membership. We get all these new, we're climbing at percentages, and okay, bring your crap to our county and help us out in Stanislaus because we need it. If you're from LA, Bay Area, Sacramento, somewhere where you guys have large memberships, we welcome you to come to our county and help us organize an event that will bring in more people.
Just to clarify,
Time.
Oh, okay.
Is there a motion to extend time any further?
Yes.
Okay, hearing that, you guys can talk about that after the fact. So that brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the Southern Area Coordinator report.
I did get my report in on time. You guys should have had a chance to look at it. If you have any questions, I will take them now.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Wendy's ready for the LLC.
I have a question. Did you do an awesome job of seeing that event?
Oh, God.
She did.
Yeah, it was Southern California had their conference.
You did an awesome job.
And I was very nervous, but I did it. We had some great speakers, starting off with Colonel Chair, Amy, and then we had Judge Gray, which sang a little song for us, which was awesome, and I hope you guys all get to hear it eventually. And then Barbara Colm, oh my gosh, if we ever can get her at one of our big events, that would be great. You guys gotta check her out, she's really good, so.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we've saved some time there, thank you very much. Next item is lunch, no, I'm joking. Well, it's on here, but I'm not sure.
Thank you.
We're getting close to being back.
No dessert.
There is, the next item on the agenda is recognition of Reform Caucus. We've got 5 minutes for that. That caucus, has sent their information, which I sent out to everybody on the email list. They, per our operating procedures manual, a caucus needs to, in order to be recognized by the state, they need to send us their statement of principles, as long as show that they have 10 members that are members of the caucus that are also members of the state central committee. They do, they have 11 on their list, everybody should have that. And, basically, for being a recognized caucus, you get the big prize of the fact that you're a recognized caucus. And you can be listed on our website, and you need to also put disclaimers on your stuff saying that you're not representing, and that's what's in the operating procedures manual. So the item on the agenda is in fact recognition, so I will make the motion that this, and I'm making it just because that's agendized, it's an agendized action for recognition of the Reform Caucus.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Call the question.
I was about to say hearing none. We will go to an immediate vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes, and that is now a recognized caucus.
The Reform
So
Caucus
the
doing
next
work.
item on the agenda is the LNC report. Our LNC representative from Region 4 recently had knee surgery, so the LNC alternate is here, and he is the one that submitted the report in advance, Mr. Doctor.
Right. As you just mentioned, I submitted the report in advance, and so everybody's had a chance to review that. So I'll take questions, otherwise I'll cut this short.
Any questions, Mr. Smith?
No, I don't have any questions. I just want
Oh.
to. Good job, buddy.
Any questions, Mr. Flanagan?
Was the original written on a napkin?
Get out fast, yeah.
Any additional questions for the LNC report?
So you should be chair. Shift it.
Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is the LPC newsletter. Now, I've put this here directly preceding Communications and Marketing Committee report for a reason. I wanted to mention that, we did have a contract that, we had a contract that we signed, and we had a budget item approved, which was for $650 a month for 6 months. That 6 months has expired, that contract has expired during that time period. We did not pay out any money on that because there was never a newsletter produced. The only newsletter produced was the newsletter produced around about the time of the convention, and that was actually paid for by the previous year's budget. Because that was our December payment toward that, which was the only of that whole contract that we paid. So out of a full year contract, we paid 1 month. Out of the 6 month contract, we paid 0. I don't believe there's probably any discussion, and I haven't been notified that there's any additional contract that has been received from her for our perusal. I don't think that that's something we would do. So a motion had been made to, have this be part of and parcel of the Communications and Marketing Committee, which I believe many people think they should be involved. However, it's also possible that what we need is we need somebody who is a editor that can edit together this and put it out on some kind of a basis. I do believe that Mr. Maltz has one proposal for somebody that would be willing to do that, which would be part of his Communications and Marketing Committee report. So I guess I put this on the agenda just to see if there's any further discussion about anything that we wanna do before we go to that next agenda item. Mr.
Move
Nelson?
to table further discussion.
Okay, then we can table it until after this.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to table this until directly after the Communications and Marketing Committee report. I wanted to put it first though, just so that we could know what we were
Thank you.
looking for. Is there any objection to tabling this until just after the Communications and Marketing report? Hearing none, it's tabled, and so that will then take us to the next item on the agenda, which is the Communications and Mr. Smith.
Can I make a motion to suspend the rules for a 10-minute bathroom break?
I will do you one better. I will say that probably people have to go to the bathroom, so I'm gonna say that we can stand in these for 5-ish minutes.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever works for you guys.
We don't need an actual motion.
Better run, Josh. Boomer's already heading.
Okay, so we're standing at ease for 5-ish minutes. Don't go far.
No, I can't check my room yet.
Oh, you stay here today?
Yeah, I'm gonna stay here, then just leave for tomorrow.
Where should you go on game time?
Huh?
You should go on game time.
Saddle rack
Take it to
tonight?
the game.
What's it?
You go to the saddle rack tonight?
Oh, dude,
It's the fucking honky tonk club, dude.
it's the
It's a
best.
nightclub, dude. It's 3
the
bars
best.
inside of it. Fucking mechanical
They got
bull, 2
mechanical
dance
bull.
floors, a cage dancing fucking thing.
Oh shit, I didn't know about this.
Outdoor smoking. fucking-
We don't call it the saddle rack, though. We just call it the rack.
Alright.
Well, maybe if you're a local. I have to travel to get to it.
I'm
I come from real agriculture land.
I'm an hour away.
Well, let me know after the game.
I come from real ag land to go there. Where people legitimately wear this kind of
Where do you live at?
Where we wear this kind of clothing every day, not just at the saddle rack on Saturday.
Don't you live in like Modesto or something?
Yes.
Modesto's not that country anymore, bro.
Maybe not right here. I don't live right in Modesto. Have you been in Modesto lately, dude? Are you serious?
I used to date a girl.
Modesto's still pretty fucking
I live in
good.
Antioch, so I'm like right at the mountain.
Modesto's still pretty pro-dunk compared to everything else. Dude, we got a white supremacy rally going on in our town. You tell me what.
Hold on, there's a
So
cigarette.
you gonna tell us we ain't pro-dunk? We got a white supremacy rally going on in our town. Well, I mean, it's nothing that I can blame on anyone. I mean, you know, guys going to school to be a nurse. You know, someone else got a new job. Like, you gotta take care of your personal self first, right? You know, I mean, I don't expect anyone to.
Belts don't mean everything, dog.
You know what I mean? That's where we're at. That's why it's
cardio.
It's not that we're like getting overwhelmed. It's just the fact that the people that are involved are getting organized or understand. Which is understandable. Exactly. Well, that's why we need more state and just regional networking beyond just county. Because county ain't cutting it for us. We need help from the other counties. We need the other bigger counties to come in and help us organize.
Situation, I got here way too early. We're coming up.
Is that
Like, hey, I'm already here.
this paper? You think it's gonna get on the read? I'm gonna roll it fast enough, it will be alright. I don't think we'll have enough time to soak in the weed, man. You have to leave it there a while.
Ours the last one, because the Northern California one's happening.
Normally I'd roll it right here on the crest of my hat. If I was in a truck, I'd set my hat and roll it right there.
South, I don't know where exactly, but sometime.
And I'm still old school, I like the coffee.
So that's what that crease in the half for, huh?
More convenient here.
It's like oh, because of all those, yeah. For instance, like I want every other, yeah.
But there's only no organization, usually, no, there can't be another organization that represents all of these.
Right.
So it's very,
Normally, the state literally splits up the states, and you have like two chilies.
the quote from the, I feel like, Los Angeles is just one of
Hope I wasn't too discouraging with my rant up there. Right.
Yeah, the issue
If we figure out something that's worthwhile, I'm more than willing to. But we've got to plan it out right and make sure we'll have enough people there to make it work. Because like I said, and I haven't brought it up to you because I've been wanting to worry too much, but even in my own county where I know people and I'm having a hard time because the people you've met, Matt and Lauren and Ed, of course, obviously they got, their own life to deal with, so, Matt's like going to school to be a nurse, Lauren's got a new job, so it's like schedules change, and it's just, like, we've honestly had a hard time just even with all of us getting together, right? Like, we can't get together all of us at once, because we're all being pulled into these different directions.
Maybe we need to get, we need to get Tyler.
Does he live in our area? Where does he live? Yeah, he needs to be with us. He should be the chair while I'm being the central area chair. I would totally support that. If he wanted to be the chair, I would support his run for chair. Or, and I've already discussed this with Ed and the other members. So if it comes to it, you can elect an executive committee in November. You let it become unorganized again and disaffiliate, and I can reappoint a new chair pro tem, as long as I'm the area coordinator.
Right.
So if Tyler's willing to do that, we could let that happen, and maybe we could reorganize or keep the organization we have and just run. I'll hit him up.
Because, I don't know. He keeps talking about his plans to move down to Lemoore, but he's been talking about that for a couple of years now. And he's been looking at serious.
Well, it's like do what you can where you can.
He was the first person I had reached out to.
I remember you telling me that.
To be county's chairman.
And had you done that, I would have went along with it and helped out in the same way I am now.
Right.
Whether I'm the chair or not. I wish I could find someone else that would take it. And run the county and let me be, and I could do better as a central area guy.
That's why I handed off the job.
Yeah, but she's actually dedicated enough to fucking follow through with it. You found someone that'll actually fucking hold up to it though. That's the difference. Being the chair of your county.
He wants another chair.
I would like someone else.
I suggested to him that maybe he should reach out to Tyler.
I will. Maybe I'll get his ear. Maybe I'll just bug the shit out of him until he does it.
He'd be great. I mean,
we probably know a lot of the same people. He's like me. He's kind of a country fucking like shit kickery kind of dude.
I don't know that.
A little bit he is.
But he's
maybe not as far as me.
He's a real asset to Kings County.
That's what I was saying. You guys in the central area, you guys are like our team. If it wasn't for Kings County, we'd have nothing going on. And I've been trying in Stanislaus, and we've had some. I looked on the website. We've got like 200 more fucking registered libertarians than when I started. I can't attribute that to myself. There might have been some influence through our Facebook page and reaching out to people through social media.
But I think he's doing great as chair. I mean, he's doing great as vice chair in Kings County, even though he doesn't live there.
Right.
So
if he chairs Stanislaus, I'll be his vice chair, or I'll be his secretary or treasurer, whatever they need me to be to fill in. It'll be a lot easier,
and he does come home, even though he has to drive.
Did the live stream get paused while we were gone?
I'm guessing no.
Yes and no?
I'm guessing no.
Okay. Alright. We've got quorum, so we are no longer standing at ease. What?
on the committee. Me too, I like this. Why are you shutting it?
Yeah,
This is hard to hear. And people on the live stream can't hear as well. Okay, we're no longer at ease, and so the next item on the agenda is Mr. Moult, your report.
Do I sit here?
You can stand up, or you can sit, I don't,
Misery loves company. Get in front of the camera.
Do I get from the, is that it?
that's the camera.
Hello, everyone.
Aw.
My name is Pete Moles, and this will be my first report ever. The newly formed standing committee called the Communications and Marketing Committee that has 5 of us just had our first meeting earlier this week. I turned my report in a week ago. August 6th, we had a 4 p.m. meeting. Myself, Marvin Bird down from San Luis Obispo, some of you may have met. Justin Emsoff, who was mentioned earlier from the website community. He made it to just the beginning, he had a conflict. Kalish Morrow from Hanford, California. And Beth Stump over there from Alameda, Castro Valley.
Alameda County.
Okay, Alameda County and Castro Valley, right? So, I wanted to ask, do you want to talk first about the newsletter?
Well,
While we're on that?
So, give your committee report, which is
Okay.
a 10-minute agenda item.
I'll make it
There will be
7.
questions, and then we will go back to
And we'll go back to it, okay.
the remainder of what was left on the time. Do you remember that, Julian?
I do want to preface this with, I tend to be a doer, a deliverables kind of guy, and I just sort of charge forward, and maybe sometimes I step on toes. I don't know if anybody feels their toes have been stepped on yet, but I want to preface this with, I have a lot to learn about how to interact with other committees and how to get things approved and where the money comes from. I have no budget, but it's probably, marketing typically in corporations is one of the biggest spenders of dough. We will be needing to spend some money. So, to keep this to 7 minutes, I'm only gonna bring up, I think, 4 points. The first one is, our first deliverable, this new committee's first deliverable, is the media training that will be taking place initially up at the Northern Area Summit. Bear with me, I'm trying to learn all the terms. Right, correct.
I got you.
Which Brendan mentioned a little bit ago. And we've contracted in the last month with a consultant brought to us by Beth Stump. And Beth has been Dawn, sort of our Vice President of Public Relations. She has a background in public relations. By the way, I was introduced to most everyone here at the last meeting, and I know my name's floating around a little bit. I have a long background in Silicon Valley in marketing and so on. So part of the reason that Mimi chose me. So we've hired Susan Gonzalez, who's an experienced public relations consultant in politics. She's managed and worked with various campaigns. She worked for Facebook in Washington, D.C., in their policy department. And we're bringing her up to speed. On September 14th, she will be doing what's called media training. And that's, say no more than 60 seconds, what this is.
Media training is going to be teaching people who we assign as spokespeople for the Libertarian Party state based on regions, and candidates who intend to run in the near future, how to speak with the press without digging themselves in a hole or shooting themselves in the foot. So that way they learn how to speak to the press and not make a fool out of themselves and pull up the Gary Johnson moment or what's Aleppo, and then you're having to do clean up the rest of your campaign.
Thank you. Yeah, hopefully we're better in every way, talking to the media in debates, and just in general at functions and fundraisers. So this, I guess I wait for questions, is that right?
Are you done with your report?
Well, no, I have a couple more.
Then you finish your report.
Okay. So, secondly, during our discussion, we talked about, a big part of what we're doing is trying to improve the brand, the LPC brand, and maybe better align us with LNC. And it was pretty unanimous in our discussion or it was unanimous, that everyone felt we should move toward the LNC logo, colors, and font. And I'm not sure what the process is, and I'll find out from you at a later time, but we would like to present this to the executive committee for their review. I don't know how else to state it, if anybody has anything to add. In addition, I've been talking, you know, we can do Instagram, we can do email campaigns, we can make banners and posters and put stuff on our website. But if it's all different messaging, it's a problem. And my personal opinion is, and a lot of people that I've talked to about the party, in the party and outside of the parties, the single biggest problem that this party's had for 50 years is our messaging. And I would like to, I received a quote from a consumer marketing consultancy to run focus groups of voters to help us develop our messaging. This is another thing that I want to talk more deeply with the executive committee about. The price of something like this is not cheap. It's actually a $40,000 quote. I've approached one of our big donors. I've approached Dan Fishman at LNC in Alexandria. And interestingly, I was very shocked to hear that they don't have a lot of money. He said they run nearly month to month, so something like this requires a big donor. So I don't know how we get the money, but moving into this very important 2020 election cycle, I think we need to have greatly improved messaging that resonates better with the voter base to recruit more registered libertarians. And messages that address their practical needs, you might say, a voter's practical needs, as opposed to ideological thoughts. Okay, so we're going to continue to work on that. I was asked, item number 3, or actually 4, I'm going to give you a copy of this too. I was asked by Steve and Mimi to take a look. Apparently, and I don't want to, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know very little about this, but Judge Gray knows a wealthy, I believe, Vietnamese libertarian in Southern California that was very interested in finding out about how to do TV spots, like 15, 30-second libertarian ads to try to recruit registrations, at least in Southern California. So I got a quote from Kaboom Productions. I have 2 other production shops. That's kind of like a $90,000 to $120,000 project to produce it, everything from the creative through the production to the post-production and making a real ad. And the cost of running ads, I have a clip there, and I sent you an email, the 2 of you an email. I said like one campaign would be on the low end $380,000 of TV, 15 or 30-second spots. So I guess I'm passing that off to you to take that to path. Yeah. Okay. Then I think we'd like to also consider the fine-tuning of the number of outbound vehicles that we use. You know, again, we have to find consistent messaging that maybe resonates more greatly and is more effective, but we don't have unlimited funds and unlimited people, so how many different social media platforms do we do? How many different social network platforms? You know, of all the different marketing communications vehicles, which ones do we choose? There was unanimous discussion, I think pretty much unanimous, that our website is the central focal point, and that's always been my belief. We need to drive more traffic to our website. We need to put the calendars up there, the events calendars, the events calendars, and drive everybody across the state to our site more. Okay, last item. The newsletter, the Libertarian Activist Newsletter. We were asked, well, I guess everybody knows you guys voted on whether or not to amend the operating procedures manual, and that was passed, but I did say that I think our committee should participate. So I spoke to someone through my greater circle of business contacts, and I got it. I don't have, by the way, a printed copy of it yet, but I'll get it to you as soon as possible, hopefully within the next 48 hours, but anyway, she can do it in the price range that we were talking about. She is $45 an hour. She said probably doing it for some would be 10 to 15 hours, that's kind of in the $450 or $700 price range, and she's gonna provide me with a couple of mock-ups. So I could get us going on that if you want.
Okay, so that's time. Is there any questions, and if so, will require a motion to extend time?
Like to extend time for
5 minutes.
5 or 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes.
5 minutes, seconded.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Hewitt and seconded by Mr. Nelson to extend time by 5 minutes. Any discussion to extending time? Hearing none?
Yeah, you jump in.
No, good.
Any objections to extending time for 5 minutes?
No.
Hearing none, we're extended for 5 minutes, and, did you have anything more on your report, or do you have questions?
I have a question.
Okay, are there any questions for the marketing and communications?
Second.
Mr. Valenti?
That 380K something for the Vietnamese ad, is that just for the Vietnamese TV stations, or is that
Yes.
all over the place? Okay.
Yeah, that would be, I can't exactly remember the formula I had, but I said they ran it for a 2-month period, 5 days a week on 3 different news stations, Vietnamese language news stations, in 3 different areas, or 4 different areas actually. And I don't know what a media specialist, we would be working with someone that would advise us, but that would be doing just Vietnamese. And I don't know if this person wants it in English or in Vietnamese language, that it would be targeted, from what I understand, of the Vietnamese community. And it would be, I ran numbers for Sacramento, Bay Area, LA, San Diego, maybe some 5 locations, 5 days a week for 2 months, 2 times, like maybe in the fall, maybe early next year.
I'm putting myself in. So just as a clarification, I guess, this was something that was specifically something that our treasurer, Mr. House, spoke to Judge Gray about. This proposal that we're getting is not something where we're going to, as a committee, be voting on a $120,000 or $320,000 budget item, because obviously that wouldn't work because we know what our bank balance is. This would be something that we're putting together to be able to give a business plan to this wealthy person who would possibly be willing to bankroll this. So this isn't something that we're saying that we're gonna spend $500,000 on out of our money that we don't have. So, just as a.
Thank you for the clarification.
I thought that was an important clarification.
Just
A little
maybe
bit.
slightly.
Yeah.
It's either you're gonna do it or not.
This is a business-
It's not you're gonna do it or you can do it a different way, or it's gonna.
Well, we're gonna provide them with this business plan because that's what they asked for. If they come back to us and they want further information, we can flesh it out more. But this is not something where we're coming to this committee saying, will you approve a $500,000 spend on something that we don't have $500,000 to spend on? So this is just for a business plan to put forth to this person that could possibly be interested in doing that, and that would be great. Okay, so, additional questions for the Communications and Marketing Committee? Additional questions for the Marketing and Communications report? Sorry. Okay, hearing no other questions for the Marketing and Media, or the Communications and Marketing Committee, that then brings us to the final 13 minutes of the previous, which you will be probably speaking on as well. We are now back to the tabled item of LPC newsletter. We've got 13 minutes remaining on that agenda item. And I'll just reiterate, one of the things that we had talked about was how we were going to do this. This could be a motion, this could be additional discussion, but
Social media advertising.
I believe that what he's looked at is having somebody that can edit the content. We'd still need to be able to create content, which I believe that the Communications and Marketing Committee could help drive that content. But we would need an editor for this newsletter because we need somebody with that experience and expertise to put it together. We don't need to do it monthly, I don't think, or maybe we do. It's up to you guys, but I think that it's a good outreach idea to have both outward facing and inward facing newsletter, so it wouldn't just be marketed to, I'm speaking on this. My thought is that we need to be outward facing as well as inward facing, so that it wouldn't just be a membership newsletter, it would be a newsletter that would be fed to our website and so forth. Mr. Nelson.
On that note, I would like to say I made the previous motion to amend the OPM to mainly make this the purview of the Communications and Marketing Committee, given that it's communication. That being said, I do believe that each area coordinator, and I'll speak in my own capacity as the northern, I do believe that we can also give some measure of content on a regular basis for the newsletter, giving an overview of what's going on in each area, as well as, like what events we've attended or what events may be going on, just to kind of supply a regular stream of content, whether it's on an alternating basis or whether we each contribute something each time the newsletter is given, just to help provide more content on a regional basis. That way people are in tune with what's going on.
Keep talking, I'm just putting myself in the queue now. Keep talking.
I'm done. I just want to say I would be more than willing to help, and I don't doubt that my fellow area coordinators would also be willing to supply what information they have to that subject for the newsletter.
Okay, so I have me next and then Ms. Hewitt. I was just gonna say that this is just me personally, my opinion. I think it would be great if we had a steady stream of content being brought to us by the area coordinators, by membership, by the counties. However that happens, have that come through as a stream that could either go through it could go through marketing and communications, or it could go through some other vein. And some of this could be fed to our website on a regular basis, feeding it to this is my thought, is feeding it to the website, and then on a certain interval time period, have a editor who then takes this content, takes the best of the content, consolidates it down to a newsletter that's sent out via email to both, and I'm gonna put you after her. So this is my personal thought of how I would like to see this happen, and that was my speaking on it, Ms. Hewitt.
So do we have somebody that's willing to edit, and are we directing them to do it, or
We
shall
don't
we
have
ask
any
them
motion
if
on
they will take it on?
We don't have any motion on the table right now.
It sounds like they're consulting with someone who might be interested.
It would be.
It sounds like we're soliciting a bid from someone, not that we are currently adopting.
Correct.
Do we know anything?
We do, so and I'll let if no objection, I'll let Mr. Moll speak on this, but he has gotten a proposal from a person who has expertise in this, that does this on a regular basis, that could in fact do this editing and compiling for us on an hourly basis of $45 an hour we would have constraints on how many hours that would be. Right now, it sounds like it would be less than what we'd already budgeted per month for a newsletter, which was $650 a month on Wikinews. But he's gonna speak on that. So Mr. Mullins, do you have more information on that?
We have to, we're the experts in the Libertarian Party of California. We have to provide the content, right? The actual reports. This person is a good writer and can edit and help make it more readable and more attractive. In addition, they would be responsible for the layout, right, and the physical look. She reviewed one we had, the last one that got sent out in April. I think three of you commented to me that you just deleted it. It was like, I don't know, 9 pages long or something, and just way too much detail. It was the one that just before the convention. It's just not a very readable product. So what she can do is she can improve the viewership by improving the English itself as well as the layout. I think this would be an opportunity for us to go with the Libertarian Party of California using the LNC color scheme and logo and so on.
If we do.
If we do. She also is adept at using different email systems, MailChimp or whatever we might use.
SendGrid and.
Yeah, is that what we're doing, SendGrid? Okay. but we would have to come up with the primary.
Right, but primarily, so the proposal that he's got is for somebody to edit this. We would still be getting the content that would be going through the communications and marketing department for the content itself, but then she would be somebody that has the expertise to actually put it in a readable format to be emailed out to registered voters as well as to the Libertarian Party members, and then possibly even print copies of these for certain special events, Mr. Nelson.
Well, and I was gonna speak to your point, whoever takes this on, I do believe that we should clarify that in the very near future, moving forward on who's going to do this, that way we aren't trying to solicit bids on a regular basis. Whether it's communications or marketing committee or a contractor or whatever. I'm willing to work with whoever to try and produce regular content for the North. And I'm hoping that my fellow area coordinators are willing to do the same for their regions. But I do think that that would be a nice general overview for events or subjects that may be pertinent. I mean, he mentioned a controversy going on in Central. I listed several events in my report that I believe that members in those areas might desire to be informed about. So if whoever takes on the role, I'm willing to work with them in whatever capacity to try and generate content that might be relevant.
And that would be the main.
Yeah, I just want to make that based considering that I was the one that made the previous motion to amend the OPM.
Absolutely.
I'm willing to work with whoever to try and make this a
Okay,
more beneficial product.
I'll put you, I've got a list, so
Okay.
you're on the list now. Okay, so next is, Mr. Quigley.
It might seem a little off topic, but anytime we get on the newsletter discussion, I like to press the importance
Yeah.
myself of a physical copy. I know a lot of people think emails and everything, is simple enough, but believe it or not, there are a lot of people out there in the world that don't live their life on the internet yet. And I know a lot of them myself. Reason Magazine, actually, because of our last convention, I actually ended up subscribing to Reason Magazine because having a physical copy of that puts it in front of someone. They might not look it up on the internet themselves, but if they're faced with it right in front of them, they might just out of curiosity start reading it. I subscribed to Reason Magazine after our last convention. My dad's been reading every copy we get before I get it. And he's like, I agree with almost everything that's in there, Justin. And he's never been like a hardcore Democrat or Republican. Those are the kind of people we need to reach, the people that have never taken that hard line. Sometimes a physical copy is good because you can put it in front of people that wouldn't ordinarily seek that stuff out. And if they see it and see a few things they agree with, that might be that little opening that we need just to get them to be having interest in what we're doing.
Okay,
If I can speak to his point.
Okay, so first it's gonna be Mr. Flanagan, then it's gonna be Mr. Mold, and then you're back on the list. And how much time do we have on this?
4:15.
Okay, and if there's going to be a motion, keep in mind, right now, we're just discussing, we have no motion on the table. Okay, Mr. Flanagan.
I was just curious about, you talked about having a newsletter that focuses outward, reaching out to non-members, and then also members. You're talking about different versions of a newsletter or everything all in one? Okay.
Personally, if you're asking me, that was what I was saying, that was just my input. But what I'd like to see is something that could be both outward and inward facing.
Okay, just curious.
Okay, the next person on the list would be Mr. Mold and then Mr. Nelson.
I guess I'm asking the question of the group, what do you think about national news, that is, news from the LP News that comes out once a quarter? I like those articles, a lot of those articles. I tend to be a little more focused on
You mean the
national
paper?
issues. What's that?
A little paper.
I think
Yeah,
he's
well,
talking about
it's
the
both
content,
electronic.
not
What's that?
just, I believe you're talking about the content, not just the medium, correct?
Exactly. I'm posing this to the group, and I don't know if this is inappropriate, but
Well, we're
I'm
in
posing to the
discussion.
group, what do you think about taking an article or two out of that? By the way, to finish up, I agree with you, it'd be nice to have both. I know there's a cost. I bought some of
Exactly.
those.
The physical copy does present
50
a
cents
monetary
piece is what
value.
they charged me out of the LNC. So that's going to require a longer discussion. But they do send an electronic. The LP News out of the LNC is electronic and
Right, I get them.
We got both.
I read them.
Next person on, were you done? Okay, the next person is back to Brandon.
Well, I'll speak to both points. I do believe that a physical I also subscribe to Reason, not that that's particularly irrelevant, but I do believe that a physical copy does present certain benefits and that we shouldn't discount that. I do believe that we should definitely offer people an opportunity to unsubscribe from a print copy if they would prefer electronic only. That way we can also cut costs and go towards our subscribers' interest. As far as Mr. Mold's question, I do believe that it would be in order to include certain topics from the LNC newsletter into the state just to keep people apprised of information on a wider platform. But I do believe that the focus should be more on state and local. So include some content from national that might be pertinent, but definitely don't put the focus there. That's the end of my commentary.
Okay, the next person that I have is me. I agree with everything that's being said. I think that we do need to have something. I think that, as I said before, we could look at a situation where at certain intervals we may want to do some kind of, some kind of physical mailing and determine, and that would be up to this body to determine what that would be, at which point we would get additional costing for formatting it. We'd also get we'd get the price breakdown for what the printing and mailing would cost. So that would be a case-by-case basis. Because Brendan, you've spoken so many times, before I go to you, I'm gonna go to Mr. Ham because he hasn't spoken at all.
That's perfect.
Well, I think we need a motion to authorize Mr. Molds to hire this person that he has in mind, or the committee has in mind. So I move to allocate the budget that we previously had, that has been agreed upon apparently, to Mr. Molds' committee and begin spending that money, hire that person.
Okay, so is your motion, if I understand it correctly, your motion would be that we had previously had a $650 a month budget for 6 months that we have not used. So you would like to make a motion to have that budget item available.
What's that?
Well,
750 is I thought we were paying before.
No, we were paying $650 a month was our last contract, but let me just finish. If I understand you, and you can tell me if I understand you, so I might be putting words in your mouth, that we allocate that budget, time has been called, I'm gonna finish this because there's already a motion, and then it's gonna go to a second and a vote, unless somebody extends time. Your motion, which is on the floor, is to extend that budget that we have not spent for the $650 a month for a 6-month period. That would be then up to him getting proposals and spending that money to go forward with this.
That was my original intention. Now, if you, I can amend the motion if you need more money.
Well, but we don't know we're gonna do it monthly, so if I'm correct,
Yeah,
$650 a month times 6 would get us a ways into that.
Second?
So that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll
It's been
second.
seconded first by him, but.
Oh, no, I wasn't seconding, I just had a point of information, with the previous agreement and the financial expenditure, was that, for her to produce the entire newsletter, content and all?
That was for her to solicit content. None of the I'll answer that as a point of information. None of the content in her newsletter that she sent out in April was original content. It was all solicited from other places. Some of the content was my op-ed. Some of the content was some things that other counties had written, so it was solicited content that she then formatted.
So to clarify, I mean, we're functionally just hiring someone to do the exact same job, no change in?
Correct.
Okay.
Just for information's sake, she's also the newsletter. She's also in charge of coordinating the newsletter for national issue.
She's a contributor. She
Okay.
writes for national. That's kind of okay. So
I just wanted to clarify.
It's been moved and seconded.
Time's up,
And we're out of time, so we will move to an immediate vote unless there's a motion to extend time for further discussion.
I'd make a motion to extend time for 2 minutes.
Okay, a motion has been made to extend time. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Who?
I'll give that one to Boomer.
Okay.
What's
It's been
this?
moved and seconded by Mr. Shannon. Is there any objection?
Object.
I thought you seconded it.
No, Boomer did.
He got beat seconded, so he had to object.
No, I didn't second it. I seconded the motion, not the distinction.
Okay, so it's been objected to, so we will vote on whether to extend time by 2 minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay,
Ayes
it
win.
passes, we're extended for 2 minutes. Is there discussion on the motion on the floor? Okay, first Mr. Halper, then Mr. Flanagan.
Just a point of clarification, because the original contract was for $650 a month, we had that allocated for 6 months. Are you talking about taking the entire amount that was allocated for 6 months and having that available for the remainder of the year, or just keeping the amount at $650 per month for the remainder of the year?
I believe that the motion that was made, as I
6 times
understood it, is
650.
650 times 6 is the amount that would be allocated for anything through the end of the year, and we would spend that as it happens as we go through it. That's the motion on the floor.
Okay,
So it would not necessarily be a $650 a month expenditure, it would be $650 a month times 6 is what the total budget is. Mr. Flanagan?
My only concern is that, we'll be paying for somebody to edit content that's being sent to her. We had a, budget for, we budgeted an item for Yalcon for, participating in that, and we were supposed to be providing material for that, and as far as I'm aware, LPC provided no printed material whatsoever.
Yeah, we did.
There was
We did.
plenty of printed.
I actually have the remainder of that material in the trunk of my car, should the committee require it for any other purposes.
Okay.
Otherwise, I can distribute it to counties.
My concern is there gonna be enough content to make it worth the editor's while?
I
Well,
would hope
that's
so.
what we're gonna have to see, so this is, if I understand it, this is allocating that money so we can go forward letting Mr. Molds consult with this person to do this, so yes, but it would be incumbent on content, if nobody gives, I see that, if nobody gives content, then there'd be nothing to edit, so we need content for editing, so there's nothing spent if there's no content.
Okay.
Does anybody have objection to hearing from Mr.
Time.
Time has been, sorry. Okay, unless there's another motion to extend time, we would go to a vote on this item. Okay, so the motion on the floor is what was stated, it was moved and seconded to allocate the $650 times 6 months for the remainder of the year to let Mr. Molds look at his consultant and put together something. This is, this is gonna be it doesn't have to be a roll call unless somebody wants a roll call, it has to be, no, it doesn't, it just has to be 10 votes.
Instead of asking for a roll call.
Are you asking for a roll call? I thought you were asking if we had to. Okay, we're gonna do a roll call vote. And we're gonna start from the bottom.
Okay.
It should be roll call.
Just start the vote before you write it down.
Okay, I'm gonna vote yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Shannon?
Aye.
Tara's not here. Mr. Quigley?
Yes.
Ms. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Dr. Olson?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Aye.
Ms. Morrow?
Yes.
Ms. Lau?
Yes.
Ms. Hewitt?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Ham?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Just had to roll call.
I think it's unanimous.
I think anything
Yeah.
has to
It passes.
I think it's unanimous.
It passes.
Okay.
Okay, that passes, so that ends us on that,
whether it's unanimous or not.
that is the end of that agenda
I
item.
didn't hear any no's, so it must be
And
unanimous.
so we'll let Mr. Molds go forward talking to
It's a
his
good thing.
consultant and we'll get something done on this.
More
That
outreach.
leads
We'll
us
actually
to
have a
the next
newsletter from
item
here
on
on
the
out.
agenda, which is the bylaws
Hopefully.
committee report.
Yes, ma'am. Alright,
What
so
if I don't make my
I'm
own?
gonna mention
What if
the
the newsletter's
most
not
pressing
having
item
no
first. The
What if I
next
just make my
meeting
own
of
newsletters?
the bylaws committee is
I'm
open to the
working
public.
for
It
Yes.
occurs, I believe and the secretary of the committee can, correct me if I'm wrong, it would occur on August 27th, 2019 via Zoom. The information for the is occurred in the report, if anyone wishes to call in, but for the sake of transparency, I have given it. We have conducted 3 meetings so far, one on June 10th, one on July 8th, one on July 30th. Again, the upcoming committee meeting is August 27th, 2019, so for those who are watching, we are currently accepting bylaw amendment proposals. I expect the last meeting of our committee will probably be in early or mid-November to give our secretary, which is the state vice chair, Brent Olson, time to compile the report and submit that to the state before the December 6th deadline. But I'd like to report that we've gotten a lot done already in this short time, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with the bylaws committee as it's constituted. So that concludes my report. I welcome any input, whether it's bylaw proposals or just general commentary from the public. So please, if you have any suggestions or comments, please give them to the committee.
And is there any questions? And I do have one. Is there any other questions? My only question, because this came up last year, are the minutes available if the central committee member would like to see the minutes?
I have no objection to relinquishing the minutes, and those are kept by the secretary, and they're actually in the Google Drive folder that we have. So if any central committee member requests them, if asked personally, I would unilaterally make them available to the member.
They need to be made available. I
Yeah,
just wanted to make sure that they exist if somebody asks for them.
They exist, and they would under no means that I'm aware of be kept from the public, should they be.
Just so long as they exist and the public knows that they can ask your committee for those minutes. if
They're
they want.
more than welcome to
And in
ask.
those minutes, it shows what you voted on thus far and what
Yep.
you're proposing. Perfect. Any other questions for this committee? Hearing none, that brings us to the affiliate support committee. That report was submitted in advance. Mr. Naranjo is the chair of that committee. He is not here. I don't know which of the other two of the, or three or four or several of the other people here are going to give that report.
I told Mr. Naranjo his report.
Okay, that was my question.
Reading it.
Yeah, so, okay, so everybody, Mr.
Prepared by
Prosser
our
is gonna give
chair
it.
of the committee, David Naranjo, who's also chair of Orange County. This is my first time giving a report, so I'll just go ahead and read it off, if you don't mind. And I'm assuming you guys have heard the committee purpose. I'll just read the mission statement. The mission of the Affiliate Support Committee is to foster coordination and cooperation among county organizations and to provide the necessary support and resources so those organizations can grow and be maintained. Okay, so objectives: identify and understand what affiliates need and provide them with useful resources and guidance, and develop best practices that affiliates can follow to effectively run and grow their organizations. So here's some highlights that he bullet pointed. We put out a survey, and we sent it to basically officers of county affiliates all over the state. Based on the results, we decided, basically we were asking officers of different county affiliates what their needs were from the state party, or what kinds of support they would like to see from the state party. And based on those results, the committee decided to do the following. Ask the Communications and Marketing Committee to develop brochures and other marketing material for the county organizations to use.
Yes.
Ask the IT Committee to develop an online repository so that county officers can log in and access documents and other resources developed by this committee. There's a note here that David Naranjo spoke with Tim Ferreira about setting up the document repository and is waiting for an update from him. The committee has also asked county affiliates to share useful documents and other materials. So as a side note, if anybody has anything that would be useful to help out other counties, especially new counties getting started, or if it's something that would be good to include in best practices, whether it's for secretary, chair pro tem, running, procedural things, anything that would be really helpful for a newer county to use in best practices, go ahead and forward them over. You can send them to myself, to Brandon, to Brent. We're all on the committee. Justin's on the committee.
You can also just go to affiliates at ca.org.
Or you can do that, and you'll hit all of us. So any information that would be useful to be able to put together as part of our guide to help new counties get started would be really helpful from anyone. So I'm just throwing that out there. And that leads right into this. The committee is in the process of developing best practice guides, specifically for chairs, secretaries, and treasurers. These guides are currently in progress, and we'll be developing a handbook for new county organizations, which is also in progress. And as a little side note commentary to that, that would have been something really helpful from my experience in just this past year getting my county up and running. We started with a chair pro tem and wrote our bylaws and elected 4 officers and are just in the early stages of trying to grow and connect the libertarians in our area. And having a guide to show you how to do that and how to fulfill each role would be super helpful to counties like mine, a lot of other ones in Central California, and sounds like a lot of Northern California counties could really benefit from that. So I think that could be a really good way for us to grow our organization from the bottom up. We have discussed having online trainings and panel discussions for county affiliates, which is in the initial stages of discussion and planning. So nothing's been planned yet as far as online trainings. But in addition to online trainings, we're working with all 3 area coordinators organizing the leadership summit, which you guys have already heard about. We already have one scheduled in September in Roseville for the northern area. Central area will probably be early 2020, possibly maybe January, about a month or so before convention. But we're in the very early stages of planning that right now. Basically the brainstorming stage, looking for venues and thinking up discussion panel ideas and getting people that might be interested in being on that. And it doesn't have to be Central California people. I might be talking to some of you guys from outside of Central California at some point about possibly making a trip down there and being part of that with us. Southern Area Leadership Summit is in the process of being organized and will be held in October or November. And our next meeting is scheduled for August 12th through Zoom.
Actually, I just want to point
No question?
I need to be recognized first. May I be recognized?
I make a motion
Yes,
to
sorry.
recognize
Okay.
whatever his name is.
Sorry, Richard Thompson. Yes. If no one's opposed.
Since Jerry's not here.
So the question is, at the beginning you mentioned, best practices of the 4 officers, right? Is this information available online, or is this something that you're planning to do, and will that be available online at some point in the future? Because this is something I'd be very interested in seeing, and I can relay that to Alabama, and maybe you can share best practices.
If I can speak for us, I would say I'd like to have that online and readily available to anyone.
Okay, and the same with developing county affiliates. We're dealing with the same thing in Alabama, so
We can share
whatever,
over state
whatever
lines,
you
too.
guys
That'd be
have, I
great.
would love to see that.
That'd be
Either
awesome.
To my
online-
knowledge, as a member of the committee, if I can speak, is we are in the process.
Hey.
Wait for a minute.
Yeah.
My apologies.
I was just gonna say that though.
Let
You
Wendy
know,
say it.
Hold on.
Let
Brent
Wendy say it.
actually has set up quite a few things online, and we put them out, people speaking like Kara Schultz and about certain things. There's a bunch coming up, and I have them on my email.
No, the seminars.
The candidates.
We usually put them out on the Facebooks. Are you on Facebook?
Yes.
You might wanna check that out. We have quite a few coming up that would help candidates, but
He was asking specifically about the best practice guides.
Yeah.
So they're not done yet, we're still working on compiling
yeah.
best practices, but when we have something that's like ready to hand out, we want all counties in California to have easy access to that. And I would be personally okay with sharing that over state lines as well. Now it's something we could probably talk about at our next meeting.
Alabama would definitely benefit from this.
So thanks for the input on that. I'd be willing to work with you on that.
Okay, cool.
Personally.
You aware, I put together a treasurer's handbook that's pretty low level detail.
I think I have seen that, yeah.
That explains all the state stuff.
And that BBC guide too.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff in there that it's probably overkill for your average county, but there's probably a lot of stuff in there you might be useful with.
If you could send that to our committee, I might already have that, but.
Well, do you have access to our shared?
I think so.
Yeah, it's on there, it's a treasurer's handbook. I make changes to it every couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
Keep it updated, so.
That's good to know.
I got another copy of these up for you.
So we'll use that definitely as our guide, and I know Emily Tilford's, her pamphlet she was using at the last 2 times she spoke on FPPC, requirements, that's gonna be really helpful putting the treasurer best practices guide together too. So we'll definitely be referring to you and Emily's, guides to make this official treasurer's guide.
I put together a macro that actually makes doing FEPC 460 forms a lot easier.
Okay, next on deck is, I believe, Mr. Nelson said he was good, so.
My
Dr.
comment was
Wilson.
already handled. By
So-
Mr. Prosser, actually.
So, yeah, we have several, just to speak to what Wendy had brought up, we have several recordings that the candidate support committee, well, I had set it up, working with the candidate support committee for trainings for candidates. That's something that we're also working on for organizing affiliates. The requirement to access those currently is to be registered libertarian and in California and to be a member of the Libertarian Party of California, which you meet both those criteria.
Card-carrying members, in addition to just registering on the ballot, right?
Right, yeah. And so all you need to do is contact me,
Okay.
and I can get you the recordings for those, and I can also send you the schedule for the upcoming trainings.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Anybody else with questions for this report? Hearing none, that will bring us to the social media committee report. A report was submitted, and I believe is it you, Kalish, that's giving us the report?
Yeah. Yeah, it was submitted yesterday, so I'll take any questions that anybody might have. Is kind of condensed down.
You're a good person.
Any questions?
I have a question / statement. So one of the things that the chair of the committee has asked me is that we as a body give him some direction on what we would like the committee to achieve, goals that we would like them to achieve. And I think based on what I saw in the report, I don't know, like it looked like we got like a week's worth of data, and that isn't very informative, and maybe that's because we haven't given much direction. And so I'm kind of wondering what we as a body want to direct, or how we want to help this committee achieve whatever goals we have in mind as a body. What do we want to see them achieve?
Okay, is that a statement, a
That's a
question,
statement. A statement and kind of a question for this body, but
Okay, so, Mr. Nelson is the next person on deck.
Given that I think that would take more discussion and awareness of their current numbers and what they've accomplished within the most recent figures, I move to table further discussion indefinitely on this item.
I don't know that we need to table, this is a report, this isn't an item. We have nothing on the table except for that we're in a report. There was no motion made, so there's nothing to table.
It was on time clock.
I would just, in response to that, I think we need some help figuring out what those objectives should be, because I would say it's not even a matter of how many likes or engagement we get. We don't even know what our purpose is with the content that we're putting out, it seems like.
I was gonna say that I think that now with the formation of the communications and marketing committee, that's gonna give us a lot more structure, because we get, we put out some posts and we put out some memes, and certain things resonate with people, and then other things like, they get maybe one like, even though we've got 10,000 followers on Facebook. So, we just need to hone in our message a lot more, and just to kind of like look up.
Okay, next person on deck.
A quick comment at some point.
Okay, next person on deck is Mr.
I'd like
Lemon.
to, if, with his, no objection, I'd like to hear what Mr. Moles has to say about any ideas with regard to getting direction on social media.
Yeah.
Is there any objection?
Is there any objection to hearing from Mr. Maltz? Hearing none, Mr. Maltz?
Well, I think marketing, which you typically call, return on marketing investment metrics are essential for all of the, whatever communications vehicle we use. And yeah, I have the same question as you, Chuck. I don't know how effective it is. Let's just say Instagram. I don't know how many non-party followers we actually have. it doesn't make sense to me that we have a lot that are outside of the party, so why are we really doing it? What are we expecting? There are a lot of questions. I don't have an answer, but I definitely think, one of the points I made in my report is that the communications and marketing committee, will overall, if we're given the permission, take a look at all of our outbound efforts and try to focus it in on the ones that we think are most effective. And personally, my mission is to get more registered libertarians. We're not gonna get elected libertarians without registered libertarians voting for them. And donors to the party. So we have a lot of work ahead of us to measure the effectiveness of any of our different marketing campaigns.
Okay, Mr. Shaw.
We need to create content that our audience, which as you say are already largely sympathetic to our cause, we need to create content that they're likely to share, because that's what it's about. We need to create stuff that they're going to enthusiastically say yes, and then their friends are going to see it. That's how we communicate to people outside.
And original stuff.
And likely
stuff that's attributed to us.
Right, and specifically where Facebook is concerned, their algorithm prioritizes video content of 3 minutes or greater. So I would recommend to the committee that they look into switching maybe away from some of the memes and more into video content.
I had
because
an idea.
that'll right at the top.
Okay, Mr. Nelson.
I had an idea for video
Well,
content.
One moment.
I just wanted to also clarify that the Communications and Marketing Committee, while they should work with social media, does not necessarily have the purview to override the social media committee. Just an observation.
As a point of information, that is why there's a member of that committee on the Communications and Marketing Committee for that exact reason, because for them to work together in concert, because no one committee has superseding rights of another committee. Really, the only committee that has that is this committee, which
I'm aware. I just wanted to clarify that because
I get it.
It seems like there was a lot of directional thought coming from the communications to the social media committee when one doesn't necessarily have the purview to completely override the other, given our bylaws.
Correct. Now, this gentleman has wanted to be recognized. Is there any objection? Go ahead.
Yeah, so my idea for social media would be to actually do a similar thing to what Mike Gravel's campaign did, which is get younger voters, mainly high school age, involved in the liberty movement because they, in ways that are both relatable to them and also would help them learn. Economics is taught way too late in school, and by then they already are pretty much registered Democrats. So I think what needs to be done is outreaching to Generation Z more, and that would actually lead to more daring and lead to more support.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Quigley.
Since we're on the social media topic, as someone that runs several pages, I wanted to remind everyone that our views do somewhat bring a bias against us from the people that are running these media sites. I don't know if any of you guys really follow like YouTube stories, Tim Pool, or other commentators,
I do.
but they are actively working against people that are anything against a progressive agenda. So as far as social media being a really effective tool, it is, but you have to remember they're extorting us for money. You have to pay just to reach the people that have already liked your page.
Yeah.
Like there's a cost no matter what, and you don't. And I can say this really more from a musical perspective than a political perspective. You get 50 people that say they're going to come to your show, and maybe 5 of those 50 people show up. So you got to remember, it's a numbers game. We might have all these followers on social media, but how many of them are actually really interested in coming to our events, getting involved, doing what we want to do? I agree with what Kevin was saying earlier. We need to bring more original content. We need to bring out ideas that they haven't seen anywhere else. And a meme that they like to share, and they go, oh, that's catchy. And it's attributed to us because it's original content that we brought out. That's kind of my aim with the pages that I run right now. Let's bring out some original content that pertains to people. They'll read it and they go, I connect with this because it relates to my direct life.
Also Teespring.
Yes, that's what's going to bring people to sharing your stuff, liking your stuff.
Go ahead.
That's really all I have to say.
That's
I'm
okay.
just sharing my experience from running this crap.
And
Because
what
I
I-
hate social media, but I'm on it all the time.
And just as a little note, if you
Amen.
guys see me like point at somebody and whisper, it's not that you're supposed to stop talking, it's that I'm acknowledging that somebody else has.
No problem, I said what I wanted to say.
Okay, does anybody object to hearing from Mr. Foster? Hearing none?
Let's hear him out.
Yeah, if I could just make one point of suggestion, for the social media committee, since they're looking for direction. I think, something important for the social media committee to take into consideration is to decide whether they're reaching, an external audience or an internal audience, and it could be both, but maybe it's one for one page and one for a different page. Maybe we're running multiple Libertarian Party of California, Facebook groups and pages, and a lot of them are internally focused content where we're having discussions about internal business, which is good, but those should be conversations that stay inside for the most part, and there should be other content that's for outreach. And I think having a distinction and having the social media committee be taking a lead on where the focus is and what the purpose is. I think that should be something that if they want our input, we should be giving them that.
Yes.
You then me, because I'm putting myself in. Okay, thank you, and Mr. Nelson?
To
And
speak
I'm after you.
to speak to that point directly, I believe that the only real metric that the social media committee would have is the differentiation between a page and a group, because the page is more likely to see an outward geared audience versus internal,
Right.
whereas the internal audience is going to be focused on the group.
So then we-
Well, pages give you statistics too.
Pages give you
Feedback.
statistics, but the social media committee does not necessarily have access to all of the membership data.
Time has been called, so if there's gonna be further discussion, we need a motion to extend time. Do I hear one? Hearing
I
none?
plan to object.
Huh?
I plan to object first.
I hear no motion, so time is up on the social media committee report. Sorry about that, guys, but that's just the way it is.
Oh darn.
We will go on to the next item, which is the membership committee report. And that was submitted in advance by the chair, Mr. Reese. Reese, is that gonna be you that gives that, or? I'm looking at you, Ben.
Oh.
He's
I was
looking at-
wondering who you're looking at.
I'm looking at-
I love that both Kimmy and Rebecca look towards the door,
Would you
like,
like-
please, not me.
Would you like me to do this?
I'm voting for it.
I'll do it. Okay, so I will give this on behalf, I will make one a general announcement in case you guys, in case you guys didn't hear, there is a vacancy on this committee. Mark Hinkle has resigned his position on this committee
Oh, really?
as of today, because of today.
What committee is that?
Membership.
Yeah. Mark Hinkle.
Because of the Imhoff.
Yes.
Because of the result of the executive
Because of the
session.
results that was read into the record on the executive session, he has resigned his position. So really, other than that, I won't add much. This was, something that was submitted in advance. This committee is back up and running. There hadn't been a meeting for a year. Now there is a new chair, which the committee itself, per the operating procedures manual, elected, which is George Reese. And they are wanting to get up and running. Mr. Howe is a member of that committee as well. Is there any questions on this report that was submitted in advance? Hearing none, that brings us to the next item of the agenda, which is the candidate support committee. Once again, yes.
How do we go about filling that vacancy?
That is appointed by the chair per the operating procedures manual. As I mentioned in my chair's report, I am looking for somebody to fill that vacancy at this point. I've asked that those applications go out once again, and I'll probably put out a message to the chair about that, to get applications, unless somebody in this committee can volunteer for that.
I won't.
Okay, we can talk about that after, because I'm the one that approves that.
Right.
And my guess is you're probably gonna be on it.
Whoa, congratulations.
Okay, so other than that, you know, they are planning on doing some stuff. We do have money that's already been budgeted for mailings and things like that. I know that that's not necessarily where they're gonna start, but they wanna work especially on getting new registered voters, getting new members, and also membership retention. We've had a really poor retention of membership in the last 18 months, very poor. And so even though our numbers are growing, they would be much higher if we didn't lose 500 members in the last 18 months that just didn't renew. So we're gonna work on that. Any other questions for the membership committee? Okay, hearing none, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is the candidate support committee. That's where we're at, right? What did I do with my, yeah. Okay, I submitted this report in advance. I won't say much other than at the last meeting we had announced that we were going to be having a fundraiser tonight because our featured speaker had knee surgery, Supervisor Hewitt. We ended up canceling that at the last minute. We could have gotten somebody from John Capal's office to speak, but it was too late to promote it, so we decided it would be best not to have the event because it just wouldn't have had enough time to generate interest. We are now planning another event for September 14th, and it's going to be in conjunction with the Northern he's making faces. In addition, in conjunction to the Northern Area Coordinator and, you know, the Affiliate Support Committee, they're doing that Northern Area Summit, and that's also going to be at the same time as that training. So we will have all our candidates there, which will be really exciting for people that do come. We'll be meeting our really fabulous candidates. And I believe at this point, and I'm going to ask Dr. Olson, you have 20 or 23 people on board?
I've been in contact with about 25-ish.
Okay, so last I know it was 23, it's not 25. We have candidates, we have some very good and promising candidates. Some of them are in the room. Ms. Morrow? Hi. We also have people in, we've got, what's his, Meyer, Scott Meyer in Palm Springs. We've got, Ricky Estrada, and once I get to questions, I've already got them.
I'll say I'm a candidate too.
Oh, I'm sorry. You guys, you keep doing these weird. Yes, we've got them. We've also got Mr. Smith over here who's running for mayor.
Everything, Antioch.
Anything you can. Whatever he qualifies for.
And even when he doesn't.
So as of today, Weber from Santa Clara County, she's running for
Hey,
Okay, so we have candidates. The other thing I didn't put in this report, but I do want to put it out there. I've been in contact with Scott Lieberman, who is very, very involved in Operation First Step as far as us wanting to do it. So I've also been involved with, or been in contact with people in Florida that have done that. I think that this is something that we should get behind. We would like to be involved in this process. I think that it's something good. I will be further looking into that to get more people on board for that, because I think that's something where we can really get elected, and that would be something that I think this committee should focus on. I know your hand's up, and I'll get to you as soon as I get to questions. And beyond that, I really didn't have anything else to report at this time, other than we've had several meetings. We've planned several, which again, this is Dr. Olson primarily, planned several online trainings for candidates. 2 have been completed. Both of those were by Cara Schultz, organizing your campaign team. I think that those went very, very well. The next one will be on August 14th, and that's going to be tips on getting on the ballot. That's going to be given by me, and I'm going to do that twice, and then Kristen Marzek is going to do 2 on campaign finance. So that is my report. Are there any questions, Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that I know that Angela McArdle and probably Kevin Shaw have been involved with implementing Operation First Steps in Liplac. And I know that I believe Marcos Morales is moving to San Diego, and he's largely the force behind implementing that plan in Florida, so he'd probably be a reliable source.
Somebody that I've reached out to, and that's who Scott has been talking to as well.
Sweet. So we have some really good sources moving forward then. Secondly, I just wanted to ask, I know that the state party hasn't always been very good about reaching out and recruiting candidates with expectations or connecting them to the resources they might need to actually run a sufficient campaign. Are we doing anything to change that?
That is
given
what we're
the
doing.
25?
Well, that's what we're doing.
Beautiful.
I will answer that question. That's exactly what we're doing. We're trying to give support to the candidates. We may not be, In the past, what we've done, and I know this for a fact, because I was one of those candidates.
I
so
do
we-
too.
Get anyone on there you can.
Most of us are.
No.
No, but my point,
Well,
but what
We
this-
need to focus on smart, winnable candidates.
Little momentum.
Go ahead.
So one of the things that this party did is reach out to candidates just strictly to run paper candidacies. And we then funded them with the money we had to put their candidate statement on the ballot and to give them filing fees. I will say that I didn't get that, I was write-in, and then I ran on my own. But my point is that we left those people in the wind afterwards. And so one of the things we're trying to change is not necessarily pay these fees, not necessarily, you know, give them this small stipend of money to get on the ballot to run a paper candidacy, but to give them training, and that's why we've got people like Cara Schultz, that's why we've got, you know, and also Paulo Pizzella at National, we've got
Open source
resources.
liberty.
We've got really good resources, open source liberty, and we're doing these trainings, we're doing in-person training, and we're seeking out candidates that are actually people that want to run and win, as opposed to.
We shouldn't be funding anything.
Correct,
Well,
and
and
that's what we have
that's
done
what I wanted to
historically, which we are
clarify.
not, which is not the plan of this committee, at least as far as I know, and unless somebody made a motion and somehow it passed, that's not the plan. And Ms.
I just wanted to clarify, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you say a budget, or do you have a budget for the candidate support committee that you?
That's a
we're a
separate
separate-
treasury, isn't it?
No, so. It does have its own bank account, so the candidate support committee is the unrestricted LPC account. The LPC membership portion is the restricted. We did this by combining the two, by getting rid of one FPPC and having both. So we are now putting more money into the candidate support committee, so we can actually then do in-kind donations, do, you know, like the website, we can promote people and it would be in conformance with the FPPC. But it has its own bank account and it has its own treasurer, which is Emily Tilford, but she's only the treasurer of the checking account committee. Mr. Howe is the treasurer for the LPC who incorporates all that into FPPC stuff.
I gotta maintain the books.
Yes, so that's, it does have its own separate bank account and.
What is in there, or?
Yeah, it currently has approximately, I believe at the last meeting was approximately 18,000. We just recently spent some money, we spent the money for that outside consultant to come in and do that training. We've got, you know, we've got some things that we're spending money on. The fundraisers that we have, actually, they go for both the LPC and the CSC, so, like, if we would've done it tonight, it would've gone for both, so life memberships would've gone to the LPC restricted account, donations and auction items go to the CSC. So it's got two separate things, and we have been raising money, and we're going to do other, we've talked about other ways of doing money. Did I see another hand? I'm sorry. Okay, is there any other questions for the candidate support committee? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna go on to the next item of the agenda, which is the volunteer committee, and real quick, I hate to keep doing this, but I drink way too much tea, Mr. Olson, doctor. I know, I drink a lot of tea.
Not
wake up.
Should've brought me.
Alright.
Nah, I'm good, man.
Just making a note about the gavel passing. Okay, I'm gonna make this short and easy. Volunteer committee is supposed to try and connect potential volunteers to affiliates within 7 days or less. We've improved our performance in that area. We've had 31 inquiries in the past reporting period. The maximum was 4 days. And let's see, rate of responses within 1 day or less has gone from 36.54% during the previous reporting period to 48.39% during the current reporting period, with a mean lag time of 1.6 days and the mode of 1 day. Ms. Hewitt has been the rock of the committee again, doing a whole, basically almost the entire list of inquiries. So round of applause for Ms. Hewitt. And that's it. Lots of pretty graphs if you want to look at the report. Yeah. I should mention that.
Yeah, I was having issues getting the volunteer emails, but when I looked on Monday, I saw two.
I think I got rid of a couple, there should be one more that just came in yesterday. You can have that one.
Okay, I haven't checked, I've also been out of town, so.
Also, we do have a vacancy because Devin moved to another state. So if
Yes,
anybody
there is a
wants to
vacancy on that.
Forgot about
It's
that.
fairly simple, it just takes like 5 minutes on your computer to message
That's
these people.
Devin Harris, right?
So
Yes.
let's
Fresno?
cut down on the cross.
What county is she in?
Oh, Devin Harris, yeah, Fresno.
Right,
Yeah.
so technically
Down on the
my area,
crosstalk.
She's going to law school.
Are there any questions for this?
is that technically my area, right?
Yes.
Yes.
As a coordinator, I should know that.
So she stepped down
Even
as
though I
chair.
probably will forget
Yes.
tomorrow.
She stepped down as chair.
Right,
Yeah, Fresno's lost
Yeah,
its
chair
chair.
of Fresno.
so another one of our counties is kinda struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kings County, you're keeping us alive, brother.
So if I could comment.
Callis, if you don't win, I'm gonna be upset.
I'm gonna be upset too.
You better win. We better make you win.
Are there any other?
We gotta make Callis win.
Quick
Ren.
call. If anyone would like to join the committee, it's real simple. You just check your email. You'll be getting emails coming through that say something about something from inquiry.lp.org or from ca.lp.org, whatever. Just check your emails. You take that information. We give you a boilerplate reply. You shoot a boilerplate email to the person saying, "Here's your local county chair." Boom, there you go. And you send the CC to the chair of the county so the two can connect. Boom, you're done.
Yeah.
Oh, so you send one to each?
It's just it's a working
Okay.
committee, so if you're looking on, just showing up for meetings, this ain't the place for you.
No, it's basically, you're just connecting new people to their county, that's all you're doing. In a timely
Are there
manner.
any other questions, Mr. Howe?
Are you keeping track of like volunteers who would?
Yes.
Any further questions?
Let him finish his question.
Walk in neighborhood for somebody passing out flyers to registered voters?
If I may answer.
Yes.
Yes. So, we have this sheets, it's called sheets, and we have all these documents that we put the person's name, and when they come in, they say, I just wanna receive emails, I don't wanna do anything, they'll say that, or they'll say, yes, I wanna volunteer, I can do this, 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 and this. And we put that on there and send that over to the county. But if somebody wanted to contact them in a closer county and say, hey, can you come help me? You could get a hold of myself or Paul.
Yeah, reach out to us and we'll get you the
Or,
information from the
yeah, we
from
could
the
say there's a
spreadsheet.
person in Fresno County that would love to do this, just, give them a call.
Right.
So,
That might be a potential like chair pro tem or something.
correct.
In
Well, I
a-
don't
in a-
know.
Well, if it's in an organized county, you know.
So just real quick, I'm gonna put myself on deck. So any emails for counties that are not organized, that, don't have chair pro tems, those
He's
emails,
looking right at me.
those emails should go to.
I know I ain't appointed nobody yet, screw you.
No, I'm just saying, those emails should go to the area coordinators. I'm just answering
Right, I
what
know.
you were just.
They should.
speaking to.
They
Those should
will.
go to
They
the
do.
area
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I get emails and I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I can't answer them right away. Or ever. Or sometimes I just forget about them because I get too drunk or stoned.
And I send
I
out
don't
an
know.
email to the new person, I usually say, if they
Cross
haven't
it.
gotten in touch with you, please let me know and I will get
Right.
see what's going on.
I have a very low activity.
Any further questions?
Is there any further questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. Howe.
About someone who's running for
And then-
school board or something of that nature in Saratoga.
Yes.
Well, if that person makes up some flyers, I'm very good at walking neighborhoods. I think my record so far is like 5,200 flyers for Gary Johnson.
Excellent. I will
Actually
connect
wore
you
out
with her.
I wore out a pair of hiking boots doing the repeal of the gas tax and other stuff that's brand new.
I will
Okay.
connect you with her.
Okay, is there any objection to hearing from Mr. Prosser here and that?
For the committee, I've got a couple of emails, about, the connection emails. Or I've been forwarded a couple of those connection emails, so my question is, those people that you connected us with, did they specifically have a thing that they said they would volunteer on your end? Did
You
see
will
that, or-
see it, if it comes over, it's usually.
Cause it's basically just name, contact info.
I don't know, do you send that information? I don't. Okay.
You should.
I can get that information for you.
So even if our county officers haven't seen that on your end, you have that in your spreadsheet, they said that they would just email, or they would knock doors
Yes.
or whatever, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, alright.
Any further questions on the volunteer committee report?
So we do need another person.
Other than the fact that we need another person to volunteer for that? I need a volunteer, I'm sorry,
Wait, what'd you say?
Was that for the committee, for
For
the
the-
newsletter we were just talking about?
the volunteer committee. Okay, we'll talk after. It looks like we have a new volunteer for the
A new
volunteer
victim.
committee. Okay,
I love
so-
this honest messaging, Mr. Secretary.
Is there
Good stuff.
any
I like
additional
it.
questions for the volunteer committee? Hearing none, that leads us to the historical preservation committee.
Okay, I distributed my report beforehand, but I got some extra copies here. And on top, there's kind of a summary sheet that is pretty much an update of the sheet that I was handing out at the state convention, explaining to people what we're doing, and how they could help us. So, I'm not gonna go through the whole report. It's talking about things that have happened since the last report, which was for the May meeting. If you wanna know the status of our projects, the place to look is our page on LPDF. Now that's where we've got a list of the things we're trying to accomplish, and also several charts that are intended to track the progress of our current projects. So the place you can find that is our page on LPDF that's called Libertarian Party of California Historical Preservation Committee. The URL is right there on the bottom of the blue sheet. Go there if you want any details, further details on what I'm saying here. The thing that we made the most obvious progress on in the last few months is the state newsletters project, which is to gather together, scan, and upload as many issues as we can of the printed newsletters that were put out by the LPC historically. And what we have now accomplished or are about to accomplish as certain scanning projects that are underway are completed, which I expect to happen pretty soon, is that we will have somewhere in 90, maybe 95% of the newsletters that were published between 1982 and 2009, which is when the party seems to have stopped producing hard copy newsletters on a regular basis, scanned and uploaded so anybody who wants to look at them can see them. They're not all quite up there yet because there's a bunch of the ones that were in tabloid format that we had to work out how to get scanned, but we've figured out how to do that now. So pretty soon we're gonna have all those. We still have an issue we still have a problem getting access to some of the ones before 1982, but we have some idea of how to do that. So we're making significant progress on that. Given that kind of the light is now at the end, we can now kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel on that project, we're going to build on that in two different directions. One is we are going to start methodically trying to extract information from these newsletters. For those of you who remember printed newsletters, they used to be the way that everybody communicated about the party. You know, there was no websites, there was no email. Everybody got their news through the newsletters, and therefore everything of importance got put in the newsletter. And so there's a lot of information that we can extract from these for presentation in other forms, like lists and charts and graphs and all the rest of that. So we've gotten some information that way already, like we were able to fill in a few data points on the membership history, which is otherwise kind of significant gaps. We were able to fill in a few gaps that way. But there's a lot of other stuff that we'd like to be able to gather that people have kind of forgotten about, like all the people who ran for local offices, people who got elected to local offices. These things happened throughout the history of the party, but everybody's kind of forgotten about them now because they got listed on a website, then the website got replaced by a new website, all got forgotten. But a lot of this stuff, even before the web, was in newsletters, and we're going to gather all sorts of information that way. The other thing we're going to build on from having worked on the state newsletters is the county and other local newsletters. There's tons of information in there, and a lot of that has been forgotten as well. So what we'd really like is to have volunteers from every county working on researching and helping us publish the histories of the LP in their county. We've tried to find people like that with very, very little success. However, there are newsletters out there, and people have piles of newsletters from the old days. And even if we can't find anybody from those counties who are interested in working on the history of their county, we're going to go ahead and start scanning those newsletters and uploading them. So in case somebody ever wants to look at them, they can. I guess the only other thing I really want to say is anybody who can help us gathering information, please help us. We're looking for information about state level activities department, this executive committee, state newsletters, all that. If especially the older it is, the less likely it is we already have copies. We have copies of all sorts of stuff that we haven't had a chance to scan and upload yet, but there are big gaps. Anybody who's got, you know, things like minutes and officer reports and things from years past, we'd love to see those. And of course, the same thing about local parties, counties, regions, whatever they were at the time. The other thing we're potentially interested in is old-time activists have a lot of, you know, stories in their heads. And to the extent that we can find people who are willing to either write up their stories, write articles about campaigns that they were in and things like that, or are willing to be interviewed in kind of an oral history style, we'd be interested in that too. So if you've got anybody who'd like to tell stories, either in writing or orally, let us know. So that's pretty much it. If you have any, want to know any more details, look at our Elpedia page. If you haven't looked at Elpedia in general yet, please do that. Very simple. Elpedia.org will give it to you. You can find out information about not only California, but everywhere in the country. Any questions?
I'm gonna go to your question in just one moment. Josh Smith had to leave for a previous engagement. So Mr. Foster, you can be now seated and you can note that in the minutes and questions, Mr. Doctor.
So, I just wanted to note that according to this report, there is one vacancy on this committee, so that's.
Yes, I believe the chair already mentioned that earlier that she had.
He's just making sure. I believe.
I just wanted to make sure that since we're on this item, that everybody is
Sure,
aware.
that's fine. Yes, there's supposed to be 5 members, and right now there's only 4. Bill Paju had been on since the beginning, but he told me that he doesn't have time for it.
And I also wanted to bring up that I talked to Bill Sussel, the chair pro tem.
From the beginning.
Yeah, from the LPC several months ago. It was right before the convention. We had a hour and a half long conversation. It was great, and he would be very happy to do an interview.
That sounds good. I don't have any contact information for him. Can you put me in touch with him?
Definitely put you in.
Sure. Can you get an email?
What's that?
Email, phone number, or something?
Yeah, I can send you an email and his phone number.
Okay, that sounds very good. Thank you. Anybody else who knows of people from that era, especially?
Mr. Howe.
Anyway, when we were over cleaning out the storage locker, I guess that we had over in Sacramento, there was an E-Machines computer over there and some external disk drives. Anyway, I consolidated all the information off of those external disk drives onto a larger disk drive that I put in the E-Machines computer. So I was kind of wondering, do you have that computer? Because there are literally tens of thousands of files going back quite a few years.
I do not have a computer.
Okay, last time I knew it was in the in-house garage.
It's possible that I got the in-house turned over to me a couple of boxes of stuff that had been from the office. But if there was a computer, either they didn't.
It's a skinny one. It's a little one.
You talking about a PC style thing?
It's a small one. It's about that wide.
They did not give me a computer. It's possible that it's still there, or
it may be. Tim had some computers.
And I don't know where those are. We need the data, right? You have a.
Well, it's the data that's on
the hard drive.
On the hard drive of this computer.
Okay.
So I put the drive that was in there was very old and failing. So I put in the new drive and consolidated all the information off of the external drives onto that one. So all of our electronic data from the past is on
Okay, I do not have that computer and I do not know where it is.
So
Okay, so we
that
need to-
computer went to my house. I assume that computer, because I got a few computers. And then they went with Tim, and I believe they're now with Steve, aren't they?
No, those are not with Steve.
Oh, okay.
Those are in the Southern California storage.
Okay.
Well, if we could get, that, say, copied onto some other, rather than shipping a computer around, which doesn't sound like it's the best way to preserve data, if we could get that copied onto an external hard drive.
Okay, let's take
There was
that,
an external hard drive with it, it has.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I'd rather see copies shipped around rather than putting.
So let's take that outside the
Yes,
meeting
yes,
and try to
yes.
find it.
Thank you very much
But
for
thank
bringing
you
that
for bringing it up.
Well, he's the
And I
chair
believe
pro
that
tem.
Mr. Nelson had his
He was
hand
the
up.
first chair.
Oh, I just wanted to thank, Mr. Dean for the thorough nature of his report. I really appreciate the thorough breakdown.
Thank you. Time is up, so if there's any additional questions for Mr. Dean, we need a motion to extend time, otherwise we will go on. Thank you very much, I really appreciate that. And thanks for all you're doing, it sounds like you guys made a huge amount of progress.
He's doing a killer job of putting stuff together. Just wanna throw it out there, he's carrying a lot of weight on that committee.
Okay, so that now brings us to the next item on the agenda. This is not actually a report, as I stated at the beginning, this is just an agenda item, which is the California State Fair. That was something that, I was hoping to get a committee report, but we did not. However, we did get, an email from Mr. Hinkle requesting some reimbursements for that event. So I'm gonna ask the treasurer, how much money do we have left in that budget item? I believe it was $123 and something cents. At this point, I don't know. It's okay, I believe it was $123 and something cents. If you could find that, let me go on. So, so we had budgeted $4,000 for this. The expenses that we approved were, at that time, for the actual paying of the cost for the table. What is it?
It's $116.52 balance remaining.
Okay, so we've got $116.52 left in that budget item of $4,000. There were some expenses paid during the event, which was to buy additional passes for volunteers. I think that others have talked about the event. It was well received. We did get new registered voters. I do not know the numbers or the amounts of any of that. But it does sound like it was a worthwhile event, and I know that the committee, which included James Just, Emily Tilford, and Barbara Engelhardt, and Mark Hinkle worked very hard on this. So Mr. Hinkle has submitted a request for reimbursement in the amount of $785.28, which is obviously above the $116.52. So we would need a motion to approve any additional refund on this. He didn't come to us before he spent these funds. He came to us afterwards with the request. He understands that it would require an executive committee motion to do so. And what's your question?
I was just gonna clarify it sounds, was it $116 that we currently itemized? What are the additional funds that he's requesting in order to reimburse?
Okay, so I would say that we've got $116.52 on the budget item. That, I believe, would be something that could be reimbursed.
Right.
I've got a itemized list from him, and I can go down it, but, it's $54.36 for a portable folding table. I don't know where that table is at this point. It was $91.85 for Staples magazine wrap, color-coded labels, two quick easels. Some of those we may be able to get back as physical assets. There was $5.44 for hangers for posters. There was $108.27 for Costco folding tables and 2 folding chairs and 2 cases of bottled water. And then there was several others which were for things like Panda Express for his dinner, Patra dinner, gas and shop gas for trip to Sacramento, another dinner in Sacramento, gas for the trip back home, Burger King, lunch in Sacramento, parking from our Kinkle in Sacramento, and a total of 5 nights hotel rooms from our Kinkle as reimbursement. So those are the items that he's asking for. The total of all of them is $785.28. I don't have this printed because I just got this early this morning, so there's no way that I could print it out. I could forward it so everybody could see these items that he's.
I got a couple of printed copies, but I'm just thinking for everybody.
Okay, if somebody would like to see it, he brought a couple printed copies of these reimbursements, so then the item that's up for discussion is, in order to reimburse him, it would require a motion, and it would also require 10 votes. Now, do we still even have 1, 2, 3, 4? We've got plenty of people for 10 votes if 10 people were going to vote yes, so we can actually entertain this if there's a motion. And if there's no motion, then I think that it would be fair to say that we would be reimbursing him the $116.52 that's still in the budget for that item. And one thing I can mention is if there are in fact physical assets such as tables, chairs, and things like that, we could get those back and they would be something that we would then own, so that's a thought as well, Ms. Hewitt.
I would like to see a report. I was hoping we'd see something about, everything. Did he send you something, or?
No, there was no report.
Oh,
Getting in the queue here.
okay.
There was no report.
That's fine.
Okay, Mr. Blankenham.
I'd just like to point out that we specifically requested data from the State Fair Committee at our last meeting. And apparently we have not gotten any data yet, to my knowledge.
I included a brief breakdown in my NAC report as to what I found to be the case when I went to the volunteer for the State Fair. I can't speak to the specifics governing the event since I only volunteered for one shift.
Correct, and just as a point of information, or just to answer a question, it was actually requested by this body that the committee that was appointed, which was a committee of 4, it was gonna be 5, but I never found a 5th person, submit a report at the end of that. We have not gotten that report, but there were certain matrices that we were asking, that this body asked for, which was how many people registered, how many people joined, these kind of things, so.
And those have not been satisfied.
We did get we didn't get the sign-up list, we didn't get anything other than what was in your report, so.
So, would it be too much to ask for a breakdown of what they spent, or have they given it to you, or?
He's asked for
Well,
No, that's on that paper.
This was extra what he wanted.
Right, no, what they've
No, I mean,
spent, what they've spent
what
to
they
this
used the
point was,
$4,000.
what they've spent to this point was what was budgeted. They had a budgeted expense that paid for the, like I said, that paid for the actual space of the event. It paid for some parking and some passes for volunteers. It paid for those type of things. That was actually budgeted as the $4,000. So that was something that was within the budget. This is something that's come to us afterwards. The only other thing that was expended during the event was that Emily Hinkle, because of the volunteers and so forth, contacted us to ensure we had money in the budget and purchased additional parking passes and passes for the event, for the volunteers, and that was part of what we had already approved. So what we've spent to date has all been things, and we also did do one reimbursement to Mark Hinkle for the supplies and stuff for funds. So we've paid for the supplies And also we had paid him back for some parking passes and things like this, so this is what's left, and these are those items that I just passed around. Who had their hand up next? I thought I saw a hand. Okay, Mr.
I'd like to make a motion that we, wait until we receive a report on how the entire budget was spent.
And how the event went.
Before we, authorize any further reimbursement.
Second.
As it was requested at our last meeting, the three indicators, the voter registration stats, the, memberships, and the sign-up sheets.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Flanagan and seconded by Brandon Nelson that that before consideration of any reimbursements, we would like the report as requested at our last meeting. Is that your motion?
Mm-hmm.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Does that motion include the report of expenditures too? Because you listed 3 things there, but I didn't hear the expenses of the 3 things.
Yes, that was included, how the money was spent.
That wasn't in our original, what we had passed at the EXCOM meeting. It was just the other 2 agencies. The money that was budgeted has been spent on what it was budgeted.
Do we already know what that's been spent on?
Yes.
Question.
When it was budgeted.
Yes.
Was there any, were they under the impression that these expenses would also be covered? I mean, did they ever get any kind of implied from the state party saying that we were gonna cover everything? So it's.
No, he was given a
Some sort of
budget, he knew
additional-
it was a budget.
It's a request for additional,
Okay,
okay.
time has been called, but I will answer that by just saying, he said, attach the spreadsheet documenting my expenses for managing the Cal Expo State Fair booth for the LPC. The total is $785.28, which does not include the reimbursements already paid by Steve, which were the ones I told you, but.
So it's
here-
an additional
And he said,
request.
I understand that this will likely put us over the LPC's budgeted amount of $4K, and then a vote of the EXCOM is required. So he did not come to us prior to spending the money, he came to us after he spent the money.
So it's just a request for reimbursement, it's not, he wasn't expecting it, there was nothing said to him before that
There was
led him to
nothing
believe
said
that it
to
would have
him
been covered.
before, but I
So we're not
think he
obligated to it, is what
But
I'm
I think
getting
he
at.
believes that this should be covered, and that's why he's asking the EXCOM to approve
Okay.
this.
I just wanna make
That's
sure
all I
there's not a
can speak to is
misunderstanding
his-
that
his
the money,
motivation.
that he thinks that the money was already, like we were already obligated to reimburse it.
No, I understand your
I
question.
don't wanna
I understand your question,
wouldn't wanna
I will say,
deny something that was already implied that it would be given, you know?
it was never brought to the committee, and I'll just answer this, but time's been called, but when this original thing was budgeted, and we were talking about what those expenses were, we were, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was nothing stated about paying for hotel rooms and gas and food, right?
Okay.
So-
I think that clarifies the question.
Okay, wait, time is over, so we need we've got a motion on the table. Unless somebody makes a motion to extend time, we go to a vote. Somebody had their hand up over there, now he's shaking his head no.
I don't need to extend time. It's not
Okay,
that
so we
important.
will go to a vote on this. This is a motion to spend money that is over budget, so I'm going to say that this would be a roll call vote, and it would need, this is to table, actually, no, this is just a simple majority, because this is to, your motion in specifics is to ask for that report before we consider this budget item.
Right.
Therefore, this is just a simple majority vote. Is this a question of
Point of
information?
information. Just to clarify, this motion would not preclude us from handling this via email ballot and if we get the report next
No,
week.
absolutely, we could absolutely take care of this between now and our next executive committee meeting. This is just saying that until we get this report, we will not consider this item. Is this a point of information?
Discussion, actually.
We already have passed because time is expired, so we're going to a vote.
Actually,
Unless
point of
there's a
information,
motion,
point of
okay.
information. Does this motion, guarantee that he's gonna get reimbursed for a hotel, the whole $700 if they produce this report?
No, this motion is specific that until we get that report, we will not be considering this reimbursement. So this does not imply that once we get that report, any or all of this will be reimbursed. It just says that we won't even consider the idea of reimbursement until we get the report.
Good.
So, is everybody clear on what we're voting on? Okay, all those in favor of this motion to, I'm not gonna do roll call. This motion, please raise your hands. Oh, I just realized that Boomer's back there, I didn't even know he was. Okay, keep your hands up that are in favor. Okay, all opposed? It passes, so we will possibly take this up again once that report is submitted, but at this point, we are not. So that concludes this budget item, which brings us to the LPC physical asset storage, which I will just ask, at this point, when we get to set next meeting, our next meeting is going to be in November. We've already talked about that, and I've got the proposal for the Los Angeles. When do you need that stuff out of your house? You just need it before Christmas, right?
No, the stuff, I essentially placed my order on Thanksgiving Day, and it started showing up during less than a week after, so I got 20 cases coming in.
Okay, just checking, so we do need to determine what we're going to do with the physical assets that we have currently stored at Mr. Howe's residence, Mr. Quigley.
What are the physical assets?
Okay, you weren't here last time, or no, you were.
I was, but
Okay, well,
it's
you'll
been months
recall.
ago and I don't remember.
If you'll recall, the way I put it is, we have a lot of baby assets, and then we have also just a lot of shit every place else.
So you're talking about like the speakers and microphones and cameras.
All of that, that's what is at his house currently, along with, I think, a few other we haven't inventory,
And
we
that
haven't
was-
officially we've pretty much inventoried it from after the convention.
That was the stuff that the M-House were storing until they decided.
No, actually, let me just say that regardless of where they were before that, primarily all this stuff was at convention, cause that's where we used it.
Right.
After convention.
They were split up between north and south, right?
No, after convention, it all went to Mr. Haug's house, because at that point, we had 3 areas. It's sitting at Mr. Haug's house right now. We need to figure out where to put it now, and it needs to be out of there before he gets all of his stuff that he needs that room for. And it seems logical, being that most of that stuff is going to be used for the convention, it probably be brought to Los Angeles. But that's where we're at, is where do we wanna put this? And I see, and one moment, I see Mr. Ferrera's hand up. Anybody object? No, Mr. Ferrera.
As the person who has moved all of the physical assets with us last year, I can tell you guys where everything is at. Would you like that, or will it take me 30 seconds?
Do it.
So everything that we use for AV is at Steve's house. Everything that they sent back to you, which is like banners and posters and printers and stuff like that, is at your house. And then everything that was at the original Sacramento office, which went to the M-Hop house, is now at the Southern California storage, which is currently Kristen Marz's house.
And I was going to ask, so that's Kristen's, when you say that it's not the Southern California office, it's the Southern California storage.
It is waiting at Kristen's house for Boomer to move it to the Southern California office, which is why I said Southern California storage area.
Okay, and then I do know of one other set of items, which is the county signs, which I believe Mr. Shannon has.
They're in my garage.
So that's what the assets we're talking about are, Mr. Quigley.
So these are the AV things that were already previously purchased when there was still a northern and southern division, right?
Correct.
So there's 2 sets.
All in one place.
One's northern and southern.
But they're
So
all
now
in-
we have 3 areas.
But we don't have 2 sets. I mean,
Right.
we don't have
So
3
we don't
sets.
have 3 sets. We got 2 sets that should be divided between 3 areas.
They can be shared around.
Or maybe we
Okay.
can allocate more funds for a 3rd set.
Okay, so, right now, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about allocating funds for the
That's
third
fine.
set. The 2 sets we have are complete sets that can't be split
Right,
into
right.
3. Right now, all we're talking about is
Is
what
where
to
to put
do
them.
right now with stuff that's in several different places, primarily Mr. Howe's garage, or house, or room.
Right,
That
right.
need to be at the next convention. So right now, we're just talking about where to put them.
So we either need a storage space or to pay for a storage space.
That's the question is, what does this body wanna do with that stuff? Mr. Doctor?
Well, I believe what we need to do with it is consolidate all of it into one location near the next convention site. I believe that there was an offer that Mr. Ferrera had brought up. I don't know if that's on the table anymore. Or we could look at rental facilities.
1 second. First, you had your hand up again.
Whenever it's time.
You were next, and then after that, it's gonna be Mr. Shaw, then Mr. Shannon, you had your hand up?
I agree with what Mr. Doctor was saying here. But I think also at the same time, now that we have 3 areas, or whatever we're gonna do.
Hartsville.
What now? I didn't hear him, whatever. So we got these 2 sets of equipment that was northern and southern, now we got 3 areas. We gotta consider, is this enough equipment for us to conduct
I'm gonna actually say
things
that,
in different areas?
I'm gonna
or-
actually say that at this particular moment on this particular agenda item, that is not what we're talking about.
Okay.
We're just simply not talking about
I'm
that.
just bringing up because we
can-
have discussed in the past
we-
about buying more
We
equipment.
can, that would be that would be an expenditure that's not currently budgeted, that's not part of this current discussion.
Okay.
Buying extra stuff isn't discussion, the discussion is where to
Just
put
where
the
to store this
that
stuff
have.
that we got.
And time has been expired on this unless there's a motion to extend time. We haven't come up with anything, so
I
I
have a
think
brief
that,
comment, I don't know if it requires the extension of time, but.
I think we do, because we're out of time, so do you wanna extend time for 5 minutes?
Second.
I would like to extend time for 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. Alright, is anybody object? No, go.
Alright, cool. I'm from Los Angeles. I know a great many of the people in my region are people with means and large homes, and I suggest we send out an email to see if anyone would be willing to store it for us.
Okay, is that a motion, or is that a?
Just a suggestion, if a motion is appropriate.
Okay, I saw Mr. Quigley and Mr. Foster.
Before any motions are made, along the same lines as Mr. Shaw here, I also have a friend that's in Houston. I store my drums, I store multitude of musical equipment there. She's actually someone that's gonna help me to
30
do my
seconds is open.
podcast and web show. She might be willing to put this up for us, if
Is
that's
that
an
in
option.
the proximity of Los Angeles?
No, not anywhere close, and I
That's-
can't guarantee I can
Motion to
deliver
extend
anything,
time.
but
That's-
I'm just offering an option.
Okay.
Motion to extend time by a minute. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any objection to extending time by 1 minute?
Can I make a
Hearing
comment?
none, go ahead.
I would like to make an opposing suggestion. I think we should get away from storing in people's houses if at all possible. I think it's more secure to have a storage unit and they're not that expensive.
Right, it's paid by the party.
Somewhere in Los Angeles makes
80
sense.
bucks a
You
month
can
or
always move
something
it- you can always
stupid,
move it to
right?
Northern California, there's another unit if we needed to.
Counter
But I
argument.
think getting away from
Okay,
this,
the
somebody's
minute-
garage is a good idea.
The minute's gonna be up and probably before we get to the next person. So, is there a motion? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion, however, what we need to do is budget to rent a facility, rent a storage space, and do we even have any idea how much that's gonna cost?
It is very much my belief we do not need to be wasting money on a storage space when we have people who are eager to help us, who have property. I mean, there's no reason to spend money we don't need to.
Okay, so right now we don't have, how much more time do we have?
Well, do we have?
Time?
That's fine. I'll make a motion to extend time.
By
How much do we need? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
5.
I'm gonna say 10. Because I know all of us, we're gonna talk more than we think we're
And we
gonna.
only got 22 left.
Before they kick us out of here?
Before 5
We can
p.m.
meet in the parking
We don't
lot,
have a
I mean,
time
shit.
certain end. We don't have a hard end.
So 5 or 10
So
minutes?
anyway, there's a motion to extend time by 10 minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there objections? Hearing none, we're extended for 10 minutes. Mr. Doctor.
So, just a question for the members of this body, does anybody have any idea how much the storage facility what the cost would be in the Los Angeles area?
Does anybody, I think that Mr. Ferrera does.
So the offer does still stand from the person who was willing to store it for us for free and ship it to us whenever we needed to, and we would just pay for the shipping costs. However, if you do want a storage unit that will fit all of this stuff, I can tell you exactly how much it'll cost. It'll be $50 a month.
That's not that much.
I used to pay
$50 more than
That's not that much.
I paid 30 for a small one in Visalia. I don't know if it's just location that makes the
Yeah,
difference.
I thought 80 for a large.
You can fit a lot in a
Mr.
small.
I have a
unit.
question.
Mr. Dawson.
Yeah, I have a question for Tim. Would we have to pay for shipping if we were willing to go pick it up from the facility itself?
There'd be no shipping if you pick it up.
No, I understand that, but is that an option that's available? My bad.
No,
Will you pay to ship it to us if we come get it?
Sorry, I'll rephrase that.
No, it's
The
okay,
option.
you're okay, just stop cross-talking here.
Sorry.
You're okay.
Awesome.
My understanding of the offer is that we could go and pick it up at any time, however, any time probably means the business hours that they are open, Monday through Friday.
Fair enough.
Okay, cool.
Okay, who's next? Oh, Mr. Blanham, sorry, you're next to me, you're not in my line of sight.
Just to make sure, the offer was also to inventory it all? Yes, no?
As it went out, keep track of what went out, and as it came back in, keep track of what went in.
And we would be also, just to answer, you had said that as it goes to them, everything is already essentially inventoried, but as it goes to them, it would be checked off the list, so we'd know exactly.
So we know what they got?
Yes.
Of course, yeah, I knew that was, so.
I'll make sure.
Okay. Okay, first Mr. Quigley and then Ms. Doctor.
No matter what,
Yes, Doctor.
we need to inventory it ourselves before we send it anywhere. Don't count on someone else to say this is what you got and what you gave me.
And that could happen at the time.
And I'm not saying it's not an issue of trust. We need to know what we have before we send it there.
Okay, we have a full spreadsheet of everything. I would say that what will likely happen is as it's picked up from Mr. Howard's house, it would be checked off the list that it's leaving Mr. Howard's house, so yes, we would know what was there. I think that is implied in whatever it is we do, Dr. Olson.
I would like to move that we accept the offer that Tim has brought before us at the previous meeting.
Okay, it's been moved by Dr. Olson and seconded by Brandon Nelson to accept the offer provided by Mr. Ferreira for his friend and associate to store this at, this is a business location, correct? That's like what they do?
Yes,
Yeah. So this is actually a business that does that. It's not a person's house and it's also free. Is there any discussion on the motion itself? Because now we do have a motion, Mr. Ham.
So shipping was mentioned, what is the location and how long would it take to ship it to say the hotel in Los Angeles where we'll have the convention?
It is very close to the hotel in Los Angeles, so we'd probably pick that one up.
Yeah.
Was it at Hermosa Beach? Somewhere in there?
No, it was like
It's one of the beach towns, I forget the name of it.
I remember it was right off of it, I remember, but it's not far, and it would be something where we would, I would say we would be picking that up ourselves, we're in discussion of the motion still, so I'm just gonna add one thing. We do actually now have somebody on that convention committee, James Schumacher, who what he does for a living is audio-visual, video, and all of that, and he's very interested in doing that. So I'm sure that before the convention, he will be inventorying it, he will be seeing if we need additional equipment and stuff like that, but I think that, you know, it will be brought from there to somewhere before the convention, so that will be good, Mr. Ham.
I don't know that this has to be a part of the motion, but I think it'd be good to have an understanding as to how long it would take for them to do the shipment processing so that we can have reasonable expectations as to when we would get the equipment if we needed it and requested that shipping in the future. Am I clear?
I understand your question, let me just actually ask you a question on your question. So you're talking specifically if one of the regions wanted to borrow some of this equipment. So I believe the question would be if they were given a list of things that wanted to be borrowed or shipped to a region, about what kind of time frame would it take for them to be able to accommodate?
So I don't know.
Okay.
I do know that what they do as a company is, they print materials for a lot of people, like promotional materials, including large trade show booths. And then they store those booths for those people. When they want to go to a trade show, they ship it to that trade show for them. So they do this daily on a regular basis. I'm sure it's a quick turnaround, but I don't know the exact.
But as long as we knew what that was going forward to let the regions know, then we could probably make that work. And did you have?
That was all, just as long as we can figure out what that would be and relay that information.
And I'm sure that that's doable. So right now, we're in discussion only on the motion to.
Harbor City is the name of the town.
I beg your pardon?
Harbor City.
I was thinking that, but it was like, okay, so Harbor City, which is in the basic, South Bay area, not far from, very close to Culver City, which is where this is at, Mr. Nelson.
Call the question.
Question's been called, is there any objection to calling the question? Hearing none, we're gonna go to a vote. All those in favor of this, please raise your hands. All those opposed? It passes, so that takes us to the next agenda item. And it passes, it doesn't have a vote. So the next item was added to the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, which is IT assets. And by the way, we're real close to being done. So the IT assets, it was added by Mr. Nelson. I believe I know why you've added it, but would you like to speak to why you added it?
That would be very interesting. My question would be for anyone that's either currently involved in the IT or website committees or has been aware of that. Have our assets ever seen an audit that you're aware of? Like an outside audit, not internal?
I can tell you that no, we have not had an outside audit. However, we did discuss that last year. We did have somebody internally in the IT committee, go through and do a check of the security in all of our IT assets.
Just
And
out of curiosity, what is their background?
it was Nick Smith, and he went through all of our stuff, and he did find some vulnerabilities that he corrected. Beyond that, we talked about having, at last XCOM, the previous XCOM, I think it was the OpsCom, but it might have been the officers, we talked about this because it was a question of concern. And I did get pricing at that time, I beg your pardon?
No, that I'm aware of. I was just curious, like we haven't done anything since, correct?
So we had the audit that we had by somebody that I believe is very trustworthy and knows his stuff, cause that's what he does. We did talk about having a outside company, somebody not internal to the party at all, doing that. I did get some estimates on that. If you would like, I can get those estimates. This was, how many months ago was that? This was a while ago.
I'd imagine around a year.
A year-ish ago. So if that's something that you guys want, I can put out that information for the pricing that we did get, if that's something this body would be interested in doing, and I'm assuming that you're bringing this up because that's something.
I'm bringing it up because I'm interested in seeing an outside audit of the assets happen. I know that I've talked with Mr. Dawson. He estimates that we should be able to look for an outside audit of the IT assets probably for $500 to $1,000.
Well, interestingly, I found different price range. I found some that were very expensive, but I think that they were thinking we had a far more extensive IT situation. So the pricing that I got was right in that neighborhood. It was in the neighborhood of, and these are people that are nothing to do with the LP at all. I got it from the.
Well, we can always pursue other options. I just think that.
No, but I'm just telling you that is what we got.
I think that we should get someone from outside the LPC network to audit our IT assets just for security sake, especially considering.
Well, so I guess my only question is what's your ask, because I can provide the proposals that we have, and then we could have a motion to spend that money because it's not budgeted.
Currently, I'd like to see any proposals that you may have obtained in the past, since apparently we haven't seen an outside audit previously, and just to bring that to the committee's attention that we should probably look at doing that in the near future.
Okay, so.
I'm not making a motion to budget that item currently.
Correct, and that was my question to you, is not are you making a motion right now, but are you asking for that information?
Yes.
So that this committee can make a decision on whether or not they would like to make that expenditure.
I am making
to
that
have that
request.
done. Okay, so that, I can get that information, and also, Mr. Dawson, being that this is something that you have some experience in with outside referrals, can you possibly work with me and get a couple numbers for me?
I can supply a few people I know, yes.
So we'll provide a few different proposals, Mr. Ferreira.
I just want to know what we are trying to audit. So we've got the website and email system. Is it anything beyond that we're trying to audit?
I would probably recommend that any online finances we have also be audited, like the security of any financial systems that we have.
QuickBooks Online.
Whatever we may have, I don't know.
We have different things. We have PayPal, which actually it turned out there had been a vulnerability in the PayPal account, which has been corrected.
Neon?
Neon, I think, has been corrected, but yes, those are the kind of things we're talking, we're basically talking about everything that we have, which is not that much, you know, it's like, we're not like, we're not talking like we're a corporation that has a crap load of stuff, but this, which is why it's like in the neighborhood of 500 to 1,000, cause the places that I talked to that gave me those numbers have a better understanding of what we have, and so, being that you have this, would you like to? So I guess what we'll do is we'll put this as an action item to get that pricing so that we can put that out to the committee via email, and time is called. I'm gonna suggest that this particular email chain be in the exact.com, not.
I have no problem with that. I can also probably recommend a couple of people from outside the LPC, not necessarily from outside the LP, but I do believe that we should try and get as external as possible.
And I also
within the
talked to
price
Daniel
range.
Fishman about this as well, so just FYI.
Thank you.
So time has
Would you
expired.
like to include the IT committee in that email?
I would.
Oh yeah, you would be of course you would be included.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Might be helpful.
I'm just saying that this wouldn't go to the extra, and for all those listening about transparency, this is kind of confidential, so it would not go to the reflector list, this would not go to the greater public, because this would be something that would be an internal audit. Time has expired, so is there anything that you would like to say that would require extending time?
No, thank you very much.
No, I was looking at Mr.
No.
Quigley, cause he had his hand up.
That's okay. I can talk to Brandon directly.
Okay, so time has expired on that item. The action item will be that we will get some proposals and get those out to the email list to get something so that a motion could possibly be made via email motion. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is new business. I do believe at the start of this meeting, there were, I believe 2, and one of them was Mr. Shaw's resolution.
Yes, but if it would please the group, I might like to yield the floor to the author of the resolution. He's here with us. Would that be okay?
I am perfectly fine with that if this group is okay with that. Is there any objections to yielding the floor to Mr. Dean?
Mr. Fast.
Or Mr. Fast, sorry. I'm on the wrong person here. Mr.
No.
Fast. Mr. Fast?
Is that okay?
Nobody objects to this.
Okay, so, the resolution that I would like to submit to this body, is as follows, and it reads, whereas the Libertarian Party of California condemns massive roundups by the federal government of Hispanic Americans and others in a hunt for aliens not possessing required government documents, and whereas those suspected of being undocumented aliens are denied the fundamental freedom to labor, to move about unmolested, and whereas the Libertarian Party opposes welfare payments to aliens, just as we oppose welfare payments to all other persons, therefore be it now resolved that the Libertarian Party of California calls for the lifting of all restrictions on immigration and for full amnesty for currently undocumented aliens. Be it further resolved that we support the abolition of the Border Patrol and of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. That is the resolution. I have a rationale for it.
Well, actually, let me stop you first, because so far we just have a motion for a resolution that was made by Mr. Shaw. And I do know that this resolution has been adopted by other states.
Yes.
But Mr. Shaw has made the resolution, which has just been read. Is there a second to this resolution, or the motion to adopt this resolution?
So.
Okay, Dr. Olson seconded. Now we will go to discussion. The first person on discussion would be Mr. Shaw.
I would love to speak in favor, but I believe Mr. Fast has a much more sound reason.
And I was gonna say that if nobody is objecting, I think that Mr. Shaw would like Mr. Fast to speak.
Okay, so the rationale behind this is that the indefinite detention of undocumented children and families in the government camps on the southern U.S. border is a humanitarian crisis and the result of decades of awful border and foreign policy that needs to be scrapped immediately. This resolution looks at a long-term solution to this problem where free trade and free movement of peoples and individuals are the key to peace and prosperity for all. I would like to add to this that the language of this resolution is verbatim from the 1978 National Platform. The only thing that I did was restructure it into resolution format, but this is from the 1978 National Platform.
Okay, so first I have Mr. Nelson and then I have Mr. Shannon.
I'm not raising my hand.
Huh?
I am not raising my hand, I'm merely stretching.
Just to clarify, I believe that someone in the Facebook group brought up the concern that resolutions without actually doing anything with them are kind of pointless, and I tend to agree with them. So is this something that if we pass, we would publicize? Like, is that something as chair that you would seek to publicize if we pass it?
I believe
Given
that
that
if
it
we
deals
did,
with a pertinent issue?
We could do a press release, stating that we have, for the state, adopted a resolution.
In conjunction with
And,
the
include it verbatim and include information from Mr. Fast that this was the original platform,
1978.
issue in 1978, showing a consistency of the party over the decades regarding this issue.
Okay, so in answer to your question, that's the answer, so would you like to amend the motion to adopt this resolution?
I would be in support of adopting the resolution as long as we do something aside from just internal politics
Do
with
you
it.
want to amend the
Yes, ma'am.
motion to include that this would be then broadcast
Publicized,
through
yes, ma'am.
through a press release? Okay, so Mr. Nelson has moved to amend the motion to include that proviso. Is there a second?
Point of information, can you just clarify one more time what the press release would be? Is that to be determined?
It would be well, as she just said, and I'll answer that, I'll answer
Just
that.
kinda recap
That
that.
request for the point of inquiry. I believe that what we're saying is that we would then publicize in a press release that would put out on the wires, that would say that the Libertarian Party of California adopted this resolution, put it in verbatim, include the fact that this was part of the national platform in 1978. And then once that press release was done, I would assume it would be signed by the chair. So
Yeah,
it would
it's-
need to be reviewed, which I could put it out to this committee for review, but that's the way we usually do. Time is done.
Call the question?
There was no second yet.
No.
There was no second.
I'll second.
Love you.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, everything else was points. So we are at the point of a vote unless somebody extends time, because wasn't that time? So time is over, so in order for me to recognize you, we'd need
That's what I'm going to do.
okay, so what's your, thank you.
I would like to move to extend time for new business for 10 minutes.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to extend time for 10 minutes.
Who was the second?
It was,
Brandon.
Brandon Nelson. Is there any objection to extending time? Hearing none, we've extended time by 10 minutes. So it has now been moved and seconded, we're in discussion. Is there any discussion on this actually,
It's the amendment, right?
we are only in discussion on the amendment. The amendment has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion specifically on the amendment? Okay, hearing none, we're gonna go to a vote on the amendment only. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so the motion as amended is now the main motion. We are back to discussion on the main motion as amended. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Shaw.
I won't take long, but to those who are concerned about the value of resolutions, I agree, they tend to be masturbatory, for lack of a better word, they're not good for much. But in a largely left-leaning state like California, I think it's important to communicate these principles are libertarian principles. We can't let the left own the narrative that they own, they can't own this issue. So I do think there's value in coming out and representing that position.
Yeah. Also, not to mention the fact that Obama also joined the proposal.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we're still in discussion on the motion as amended. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Nelson?
Call the question.
Okay, the question's been called. Any objection to calling the question? Okay, we're gonna go to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, so. All those opposed? One. Expressed abstentions? One. If it passes 911.
Thank you.
That's kind of
Thank you guys.
Emergency,
I'll notify the team via the committee email, that we're gonna do a press release.
Thank you,
And
Ben.
Mr. Fast, could you send a copy of?
The text?
Yeah.
Okay,
Secretary and
so now we are still in new business. Is there any other new business?
Yes. Earlier you had mentioned that at this time we could, consider filling the credentials committee and the awards committee.
Correct, and I knew that there was two, I lumped them as one, but, okay, so for new business, the first one would be filling the awards committee, which is a committee of 3 or 5?
Five, I believe.
And that's voted on by this body. So the awards committee would be responsible for determining the recipients of awards at our next convention, and the 5 members of this committee would be doing that. So are there any nominations for the awards committee?
Have we received any, applications for that, or for either of those committees?
I do not believe so.
I think that Machias had, submitted an application for credentials, but I'm not.
Oh, you know what you did? Actually, we're at awards right now, so you had put in a request to be on the credentials. But we're at awards right now, so I don't believe that there was anybody, you can look on SurveyMonkey if you'd like, I don't believe there was any people that wanted to be on that committee.
I would be willing to serve on the awards committee, but only some other people. I'm looking at the OPM right now to see, just make sure that it's 5 people on that committee.
Okay, are there any other?
5.
Are there any nominations? So right now, Dr. Olson has nominated himself. Is there any other nominations to be on the awards committee?
If he needs a second for his own nomination, I'll happily provide that.
We're looking for additional nominations for this committee.
Point of information, do any of our guests in the room have interest in the job? It does not sound like it.
I accept the nomination.
I nominate Tim.
Okay, so right now we have Dr. Olson and Mr. Ferreira. Is there any other nominations?
I withdraw my second of Mr. Doctor.
I'll second Mr. Doctor.
Oh, he doesn't know.
So that's all our nominations?
Okay,
I'll nominate Eduardo.
I second that.
okay, right now we're up to 3 of the 5.
Tested
2 more people, come on.
There
people.
is another
It's not a lot of work.
option for this, is that we could, in the next week, reach out to people to try to get people that are truly interested in being on this committee and do this by email ballot.
Agreed.
That sounds.
Because I think that right now we're just grasping at anybody that's willing to possibly think about it.
I wanna be on the committee, but I wanna win an award, so I don't know if I can do it.
Okay, so it would be appropriate to possibly table this to email.
That's.
So moved.
You moved?
So moved.
Seconded? Mr. Quigley?
It doesn't matter. I was gonna make a motion to give an award to anybody that signs up for this committee.
Okay. Who made the motion to second?
That might be irrelevant.
Table.
It was moved to table by Brandon and seconded by Mr. Hammond. Correct?
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, is there any objection to tabling this 2 emails to first find somebody that might wanna actually be on the committee? I'm paraphrasing. I hear no objection, so it's tabled to that.
Got it.
So now that brings us to the credentials committee, which is it's a committee of 5, and the committee itself elects or nominates or elects their own chair, and they're basically, well, Wendy knows well what they do, right? So anyway, they work with the Secretary at convention and prior to convention, for credentialing and giving the list of each day's credentialed delegates, giving the report. I thought we volunteered, never mind.
Voluntold.
No, last year. Well, Machias was on that last year and they did a very excellent job, but it's basically, and now the committee also is tasked with, at different intervals of the convention, providing updated reports as people credential as the report goes on, or the convention goes on. So is there any nominations, And again, is that something you still wanna do?
Yes.
Okay, so we do have one person over there, if somebody would like to nominate him.
I would happily nominate my county secretary for a position he would do a wonderful job at.
And he did a wonderful job last year,
Yes,
so.
he did. Machus
Okay.
has been nominated.
Any additional nominations for the Credentials Committee, Mr. Doctor?
I'll nominate Jill.
Does Jill accept that nomination now?
I did it last year, I'll do it this year.
Okay,
Mr. Doctor?
This year, I'll do it next year.
Kristen, her application.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, Kristen did do an application, that's right, she was one that did that. Is she still willing to serve now that she's on another committee?
I assume so, but.
Okay, so
Text her.
text her, but I think she probably is, cause you're right, she did actually apply for that.
I will nominate Kristen Marzek.
And Mr. Hill?
I would nominate Susan Aquino pending her approval of the nomination.
I believe she would likely say yes because she's done it the last 2 years in a
Two
row.
years,
Yeah, she didn't send in an application, I don't believe, but I think that she has wanted,
Likely.
I think that she probably would accept if somebody, we could do it with the provision that once she's let know, she approves, but I'm pretty sure you're right that she would, so. Susan Aquino, or how does she say it?
I think it's Aquino.
Okay, Susan has been nominated, that is 4. Is there a 5th nomination?
Point of information, this is 5 excluding the secretary, so it's an even numbered committee.
No, it's 5, the secretary is not on this committee.
And we only have 3 nominations?
We have 4, we need 1 more. The secretary is not on the committee, the secretary is not on the committee.
Assisting the secretary.
It's
Gotcha.
assisting the secretary, but the secretary is not a member.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a nomination? Okay, we can do this, we can vote on these 4, and then if we find another nominee, we could then appoint that person via email ballot. Mr. Ferrera.
Since you're already going to send out an email asking for people for one committee, should you maybe do both at the same time?
Sure.
Just a suggestion.
I just figured we nominate Mark Bird.
Not eligible.
How do we censure somebody? How do we do that?
I don't know, you guys messed that up this morning.
Okay, so I think that even though he's obviously not making a motion, I think that what Mr. Ferrer is saying is rather than have this election, we do have 4 nominees right now, all of which would be willing to serve on this. We could fill those and then just put out the email for the one remaining seat, or we could do the whole thing by email and elect all 5 of them once we get the other person. I think, Okay, well, the motion has, well, we've already started this, so I guess the question is, do we complete this election process, or do we not, Mr. Nelson?
I'd like to move to extend time on new business for an additional 5 minutes, and then.
Just call the question.
I'd like to bring up another.
Yeah.
question.
There's really no question, because right now it's an
Yeah.
election, so it's not a question to be called, other than we could go to immediate vote for the 4 people that have been nominated. Is that what you're doing, Mr. Shannon? I'm sorry?
Bummer. What's that?
Did you say call the question?
I did, I'm sorry, I thought there was a motion to
Well,
adopt these
no,
three,
the,
these 4.
what's on the
Yeah,
floor
so like
right
4.
now is
He's
nominated.
calling for an immediate election on these 4.
That was my question, is that,
That's
that is
what
you're
he's
doing?
expressed interest in.
Yes.
Okay, so the question
I'll
has
second
been. Okay, is there any objection
Come on, you
to
mean,
us
bro, we're gonna
voting?
roll this through.
You guys, is there any objection to us now voting on these 4 nominees, because apparently nominations are closed and we're going to a vote? Okay, so we're going to a vote. Right now we've got 4 candidates, and right now that would mean a ballot unless there was maybe.
Mr. Chair, may I recommend that you, accept my abstention?
Acclamation.
Acclamation, sorry.
I know, did you see the look I was giving you?
Yeah, what's this? Chuck did apparently.
I'm just sensing some teamwork here, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so.
Come on, buddy, you're the only one getting brain cells left, I need your help.
Okay, so what's happened is we've already been said that we're going to vote on these nominees. I'm gonna say that when you made that motion to go to the vote, included in that was that we were voting on these four by acclamation. Is that what I heard?
That sounds fantastic.
That's what I heard. Okay, so, is there a second to going to a vote by acclamation at this moment?
I second the nomination of the slate.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to vote by acclamation. First we're gonna say, is anybody objecting to voting by acclamation? Hearing none. All those in favor of electing these four people as a slate and then leaving that last seat open and finding somebody that we will vote on in email motion, is all in favor of those four, please say
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so those four have been elected to this committee. We will still be looking for one additional. Time has expired on new business. If there's no motion to extend time on new business, we will be going to the next item, which is to set the next meeting.
I'd like to extend time by 30 seconds to make a quick comment, if that's okay.
Is there a second to extend the
Second.
time? It's been moved and seconded. Is there extension to 30 seconds?
I just.
Objection?
I object.
Oh my God. Now we gotta move to a vote?
It's been objected to. All those in favor of extending time by 30 seconds, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Me.
Time is extended by 30 seconds.
I just wanted to bring up, one of the concerns that I raised after the last executive committee meeting was the poor quality of the Wi-Fi for remote viewers, and it was brought to my attention by a party member that the same concern has risen again to where they were having to refresh the feed every couple minutes. So I do believe that we should take that into account moving forward, that we need to
Okay, we had
allow
checked
for-
to make sure that we had proper Wi-Fi here.
The bandwidth seems to be insufficient based on what I'm hearing from.
I make a motion that the LPC improve the internet.
Well,
And that'll
that is
solve
an
the
ongoing-
problem.
It is a legitimate concern, because it's an
Um,
ongoing problem with being live streamed at libertarian
Correct.
events.
Okay, well, I will double check.
They're not aware it is.
It's
always
because
bad.
liberals
Our guest-
control the
It was
internet. What do you expect?
It was who?
They're
Ms.
like,
Sullivan
fuck
brought the
you
issue.
guys, so they should do.
Okay, well,
Google's
that's fair enough. We
throttling
paid, we had free Wi-Fi. I will say that in the contract we've gotten for this, it'll be a good tell of how they're gonna do, considering this is where our convention is gonna be held, and we are going to be, our next meeting is at the host hotel for our convention.
So we can get that.
Which
And
is
then-
where?
Los
Los
Angeles,
Angeles.
the DoubleTree by
Yeah.
Hilton. And this has been,
Thank you.
so this is gonna be where our convention is gonna be held, so I would certainly hope that their Wi-Fi is better, but, if they're not, then we will know better for the convention that we better do something different.
Yeah, I just wanna bring that to your
It's true.
attention because it
No, I didn't
was a
realize it was
concern I
still-
previously
And
raised
then-
and it.
Right, and
The
I
next
thought that it was gonna
convention
be
will be
fine
in the
today 'cause
central
we have
area, right?
Wi-Fi, but,
I'm open.
okay, so,
It's in the central area, right? You got northern and southern.
huh?
In
No,
2021?
this one's in the south.
That's,
this
yeah,
one's in
I mean, in 2021.
Sure.
Hey, call the roll.
President?
Okay,
If they've
guys.
already planned the next one.
Sure.
Okay,
Did I
so
tell you?
and as we discussed at our
Okay.
last meeting, by the way, as we discussed at our last meeting, the next meeting will be the last meeting before convention, so it will be held in the south. In this
Right.
particular case, at the host hotel. The one in January after that will likely be held in the central, because that's the one area that has not had one yet.
That's exactly what I was bringing up.
I'm gonna have you wait a second till I actually say what this is, and then we can talk about the actual thing. I'm sorry, I'm getting testy,
No worries.
You addressed exactly what I was questioning.
okay, well, he's got his hand raised, but I'd kinda like to just.
He's had his hand raised the whole meeting.
I know he has.
Love you too,
And he's the one that
but.
really likes to call questions so people don't take too much time. Just say it.
Well, you know, I'm open to people calling the question on me
I'm
too.
I'd like to make a
saying.
motion to handcuff Mr. Nelson's hands next time.
Okay,
Or
so.
that, Brandon.
I'm open to the idea.
We are almost done here. So, the date available is November 9th, which would make sense because that's 3 months from now. It's prior to the convention, it would be our fourth quarter meeting. And this is what we typically do before conventions, is we have a meeting at the hotel. So, I will tell you that it's $300, which is a great reduction to what it normally costs, which is $650. And I'm just going to say right now that at this moment, we have less than 300 left in our budget. This would also have taxes and fees, because that's what they all do. So, I'm gonna personally move that this is our next meeting on November 9th. However, it's also gonna need a budget item of, what was the final, where's the total we're at?
Actually, right now we're almost $75 over budget for this meeting, so.
Okay, so we've already gone over our budget for meetings by $75. So this would need a motion to budget an additional, probably $500 for the 2 meetings, Mr. Ferrera. Any objections to Mr. Ferrera? Hearing none.
I'll donate the meeting space for your next meeting.
Party at Tim's house.
Party
at Tim's
Oh, you'll pay for this hotel?
I'll pay for that. If it is the $300 to $500 that you're talking about, if it
It's-
is 10,000 an hour.
No, I can tell you it's 300.
Convention.
It's 300 plus 24% fee plus 10% sales tax.
I'll do that.
Okay, in that case, we don't need that motion.
Thank you, Tim. He wants to go and leave it.
He wants to leave. So the $75 is not enough of our budget that we would need to have an additional motion for that for the year, because that's gonna be the entire year, so I think we're good. So yes, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, I have a request that you put out a message from the chair in order to address the fact that all party endorsements for candidates have to be addressed by the Q4 meeting. That way they can be submitted on time to the.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
And is that that's just a request?
That would be a request that you adopt an action item to
Okay,
send
and that's
that
what I was
out.
gonna say. Okay, so the action item would be, and what time frame? When would I be putting this out? Because right now we don't have that many candidates, so.
I would hope that you would put it out no later than September, let's go with September 10th, a month from today. That way we have enough time to allow for people to actually.
Okay. So by September 10th, I put out a message from the chair, and we also put it on social media.
Yes.
That at our next, and as a matter of fact, it could also go out to all the counties today, within the next 10
Yes,
days.
please.
With the secretary's report of the meeting. So I think it would probably do all that, and we can put those as action items. It doesn't need an additional motion as we
That would be
this
good.
year.
Are you planning on having a candidate support fundraiser after that meeting?
Yes, and that's gonna be something that we're gonna discuss in the candidate support committee, but we've already been talking about that, there would be one in conjunction with it. Okay, so I actually made a motion that doesn't need anything else at this point, because the budgetary issue, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that our meeting will be held on November 9th at the Doubletree by Hilton. Is there any further discussion on this?
There's a time, okay.
And we're out of time, so unless there's a motion to extend time, we are going to go to an immediate vote. All those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes. That brings us to the next agenda item, which is action items. Mr. Blanham, what do you have for action items through this meeting? I guess you haven't.
The only thing I've got written down is that, we're supposed to put out, an email,
Yeah, the one that we just did.
endorsements, yeah, so that's it.
Okay, and I think that there was also, an action involved in the motion for the resolution.
There's to be a press release.
That the Communications and Marketing Committee is going to be working on a press release that would then be approved and signed by the chair and sent out. That was an action item. Were there any other action items, Mr. Wilson?
Seeking people to fill the credentials committee and the works committee.
That was an action item?
Did we solve the membership committee slot?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And Mr. Smith is going, I'm appointing Mr. Smith.
Beautiful.
I would say that also as an action item, in addition to putting out just those, because I said it in my chair report, that we also need to do that same thing, which is the applications again, to try to get more people involved, and we can do that as a message from the chair, social media, and so forth. So I'd say that's an action item. Is there any other action items? Mr. Ferrera.
There were two implied action items, one for a discussion to take place about the historical preservation computer.
Oh, yes, that actually, yes, I said to take that off mine as opposed to an action item, but I would say that probably put that down, that a discussion needs to take place as to where that e-machine is that has that
Second
information.
implied action item is that we now need to gather all of our assets, so there needs to be some coordination with that as well.
Well, that was actually a motion, so,
Well, the motion was to use the storage, but there's no action item to get to the storage here.
oh, and okay, we ran out of time. So put it as an action item, we've got to figure out where all the stuff is and how we're gonna get it from point A to point B. Anything else for action items that I'm forgetting? Hearing none, that brings us to the next item of the agenda, which is adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Mr. Howell was first,
You guys
and he
are
moves to
dedicated.
adjourn. I'm gonna take one of the
You're
other
fucking ready to
votes
get out of
first as the secretary.
We're still sitting down like, let's hear more.
Is there any
Let's go
objection
through
to
some more bullshit.
adjourning? We're adjourned.
Woo! Good goddamn me.
Only because you impeached that.
Hey, man.
I said that.
I was up since 1. I drove here. I woke up at 1, got ready, packed my
Oh, you guys,
Thank you so much.
I'm just making this to get people's attention.
Go!
We're adjourned. You don't have to, but just a quick thing. I
We're
think
adjourned.
some of us are talking about getting together to go to dinner, but for anybody that didn't already RSVP to Mr. House, he has invited people over for ice cream tonight.
To where?
His house, right?
Where's that at?
It was on a need-to-know basis.
I was planning to go to the ice cream party.
I know, so my.
I would love to stay and rub elbows with y'all, but I got a 5-hour drive, so I'm gonna go get that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Mr.
I got a long way to go.
Well,
By the time we get there.
Yeah, if he wants me to drive like all the way to Monterey, I'll be around.
How far? Oh, man, I don't know.
You gotta go back to Spencer. He's back there.
So, okay, anybody that wants to go to the ice cream party, talk to Mr. Howe. Anybody that wants to have dinner, are you guys safe? You got to that out. Just come
We need to do something with That's what I want to do. Let's do some shows, dude. Let's do some live shows and podcasts. We can all host them for our own little area. I was totally looking forward to this second off the street head because I was going to go there and troll them. I was going to go there and tell me how white people gave you firearms. Yeah, tell me how you adopted that from the Chinese, 10th century Chinese people. Democrat fireworks. And tell me how you celebrate that every fucking 4th of July. That's good. Tell me how you love Christianity and just fucking developed the Middle East. Right? I don't care if I'm sitting here.
No, I think you just got a very
I was saying
good
good
tone,
television.
man. So
Okay, we're gonna go have dinner then.
we're all about it.
So,
Tim wants me to turn this off.
do you want to see what we are?